Anyway, he could tie an airplane to his hair, and the airplane couldn't take off the runway. He could just sit there with his arms crossed with his head down. I've seen pictures of it. And you know, the humans are capable of incredible things. We just don't believe it anymore, you know?
All together, we are rising from the ashes.
Humans are capable of incredible things. We just don't believe it anymore, you know? One thing that I was told by a Freemason is that to talk about like the geometry of ancient architecture, that they were designed with such a precision that the math, the angles and such inside these cathedrals was precise to harness the energy of egregores and also certain sacred frequencies. Sacred frequencies. Certain sacred frequencies. I will say, when I first was particularly interested in the mystery traditions, and through some of our mutual CIA friends, like of me and my dad, we got connected with this guy out of Asheville, North Carolina, who is a Rosicrucian. He teaches courses online and things like that, and he's really heavy into crystals, and that's actually why I got into crystals in the first place, and now it's like a huge meme on my podcast. I particularly meme the ever-living shit out of crystals because I believe when you make fun of something, it destigmatizes it, and it's working. You know, I get messages all the time, just bought my first crystal, dude. Anyway,
nice.
Tangent aside, met the Rosicrucian guy, and one of the things he was explaining to us, he studied in Egypt for 17 years. Very intelligent guy. He had a PhD in.
You said you were ready. Hey, everybody, welcome to.
Hey, can you?
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Well, I told you not to start yet.
That's not true. You literally told me to start. You said we were ready, so. I can't help it that I'm ready. I'm always ready to go.
Shut the fuck up.
We're always waiting on Dan.
Oh my god.
All right, I'll edit this out. Let's start a real intro here. Ready? 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3.
What's up, Fire Tribe? Welcome to
Rising
from the Ashes. I'm Dan Unaki Dan.
I'm the homie Romy. Hello.
Yo.
Hey.
What's good?
Oh man.
How was your Home Alone Christmas?
So good, man. So good. I one of the presents I'm doing for myself is watching less television, streaming less, because I was getting into quite a brine there. I was brining my pickle sauce there for a bit, pretty hard. I was getting obsessed with series because I'm obsessed with stories and mysteries. And so when I start one, I have to finish it. And I'm like, oh God, it's 3 a.m. I need to know what happens. And they're so good at ending these episodes, and cinematography meets music, meets these people's ability to read other, people's writings, and so then I get enthralled in it. So what I did to finalize my Christmas evening alone here on the mountain was to go out with a bang. And I started to watch one of the original OG sci-fi television series of the thousands, of the mid thousands, and that was StarGate Atlantis, and it's fantastic. So good. Perfect. Excellent. Cheese. I love cheesy sci-fi. I just love cheesy sci-fi from the early thousands. So good.
Sweet. My son is down here visiting right now, and we were watching Violent Night just like a Santa movie, but it's like action. It's like Home Alone meets I can
Jack
always
Frost.
forget that fucking no.
Jack Frost, the Killer Snowman.
What's that movie that's not a Christmas movie, but it's a Die Hard? It's kind of like Die Hard meets Home Alone.
Nice.
Meets
Yeah.
Ocean's 11.
Oh, really? Oh, it's a heist movie.
Yeah, it's a heist movie. This whole family like invades this rich person's house and they're gonna steal their money, and Santa Claus is there to deliver his presents, and then he gets caught up in the shit, and the bad guys trying to capture Santa, and Santa is a badass, and he used to be a Viking named Nico, and he has all these Viking tattoos and shit, and he has a hammer called Skull Crusher, and he talks about it, and they do a little backstory, type stuff in the film.
Nice.
It's a pretty brutal, ass-kicking Santa Claus movie. So it's very interesting for sure. Very brutal though.
Nice. So
I don't actually really recommend it too much for children, but for adults it's fine.
So do they pay homage to the Nordic roots of it? Does he have a conversation with Odin at all?
No, he doesn't. I thought he was going to kind of reveal himself as Odin, because he talked about how he's been the Santa guy for thousands of years, and he's talking about magic and kind of like the power of belief and believing. And as the belief wears off, he loses some of his powers, but as the belief increases, his powers come back.
So like in the beginning of summer, he's like dead basically, and then he regains his strength halfway through the year.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. I don't know. They didn't really talk about that in the movie or nothing, but
does he have a normal job at all, or is he Santa all the time? Or does he go into does he work at Kinko's?
No, he works at the North Pole, dog. He's hibernates.
Oh, nice. Lucky bastard.
Yeah, I know. He's got to keep those elves busy in the sweatshops.
Sweaty elves. That's what I called my last album. That was my last LP release.
Oh yeah, Sweaty Elves.
Yeah, it was Sweaty Elves and the Machine Dwarves. Michelin star Gnome Restaurant Cafe meets up with the Machine Dwarves to cook you a saucy plate of mystical mayhem.
Here we go. Your LP is not real, or you really have an LP called Sweaty Elves? Everybody's curious.
Oh no, absolutely. You guys can go check it out on Apple Music. Specifically, I made it with the Gorillas. It was a little mixtape we dropped. I've been working with those guys for a couple decades now. We even had we even had who's that one guy that everybody loves? Oh yeah, Ben Swartzen, the flute player.
Oh yeah,
from Baghdad. Yeah, he came on that track too. Laid a couple sweet licks down. We really got
the comedian.
Yeah, that guy. He plays flute.
Blades of Glory.
Mm-hmm.
Reno 911.
Yep.
He plays flute.
Totally plays flute. He's based out of Baghdad University, where he had the jazz orchestra. This is real news.
Interesting.
News you can trust. Angel dust. That's all that's happening here. Just kidding. This is improv hour. So
fairy dust.
Yo,
Sprinkle
Dan,
some dust.
can we just improv for 10 minutes and make up a story?
We could.
Yeah, all right, let's do it.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, why don't you lay down a little bit of groundwork for us? Lay down a little
all right.
A little foundation.
Once upon a time. Yeah. There was a machine elf.
Yes.
Who didn't get up early enough in the morning to make his early rounds for Santa.
And then, as he was on his way to work, per his usual route, he noticed a twinkle just out of the path on the left side of the path. Not the right side, but the left side of the path.
It was a spaceship that had fallen and crash landed. Had he woken up early enough that morning, he might have ran straight into it. But since he was late, he saw it in the distance. He immediately burrowed down into a hole and created a path to the wreckage.
His elf nubs, by the time he received the wreckage, were bloody and stumpy. But since his genetics are of the true lineage of elven blood, he was able to recuperate himself only after a small nap and some sugarcane spice mocha from the local cafe in which he always keeps lodged in his backpack because he loves caffeine and sugar.
To his surprise, when after he had his nice little cocoa and retrieved the alien craft, he went inside and he found in there to be some beings, but not just any type of beings. His cousins. It's more elves.
Space elves?
That looked just like him. Space elves, dude. And they had long, tight blue suits and their little chunkers. And they had long red beards with red hats like gnomes. And he was surprised. He was like, why are my people on a spaceship?
It was then they told him the long lineage of time-traveling machine elves that go through dimensional shifts. And it's this time of year when he is most often late for work that the veil is shifted. And it just so happened that the night before, he had a funny encounter with another shiny being. A red bulb lodged into the trunk of his favorite peeing tree, a tree in which he urinates on and shares this beautiful moment each day. And as he touched the red bulb, he filled up with some sort of ecstasy. It might have been as he was, capping off his urine, as it usually is such a joyous experience for him to wrap up that session. But the bulb grew and started to wiggle and jiggle. And just then did the tree itself morph into the long lost and forgotten Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer who had been lost for millennia, and told him that he needs sleep, deep sleep, and to drink the tea of the nettlewort that will give him beautiful, restful sleep, for the next day is upon him, the most busy day, Christmas Eve.
Was why he was late for work that day, because he had the best rest ever from the nettlewort from Rudolph the morphine tree.
The morphine tree.
But as we get back to our story, and he realizes all these cousin elves in the ship, he starts to look to see if he can find any that have survived the crash. And there's several of them in the ship. There's about seven dwarfs. And he notices that a lot of them are okay and kind of groggy, but one is fully awake. And he talks to him and he asks them where they have come from. And the little sleepy guy looks up at him and says that they came from out yonder forth in the galaxy from a tiny dwarf planet called Nettlewort. And he thought this was an amazing coincidence since he had the Nettlewort the night before in his tea, and that these dwarves were from Nettlewort. And he thought to himself, this can't be a mere coincidence. He wanted to know more, so he proceeded to try to help the rest of the elves that were in their groggy state and revive them all so that he could have a conversation with all of them and find out his true origins. And as he was waking them all up,
suddenly he got another rush of serotonin excitement in his body, just as he had the night before when seeing this golden nose, this bulb that was from Rudolph, his long lost friend, the long lost tales of the time before when the elves were working with a jolly necromantic sorcerer that was potentially as folklore has it in the northern regions, that this wizard of the north used to be a good man, and they were living in a golden age period that all of the elves were able to fully enact their creative abilities at work. But the legend has it that his brother had actually killed him and separated his body all across, and his technology all across the planet at these different domains located in volcanic calderas. This was the story, though, but him only being a mere 200 years old, a young baby machine elf in comparative to fuck, I'm losing it here. Okay, I'm sorry, Dan, I can't go forth anymore on this story. Okay, I'm wrapping it right there. I'm wrapping it.
all right. Well, as he woke up the rest of the machine elves, he had a long conversation with him about his home planet and found out that he comes from a mighty lineage of machinists, and he found out that's why he is so good at his craft.
And
who took over the Jolly One has stolen these elves from the dwarf planet to enslave them to make toys for children of the earth. And as upon figuring this all out, the 7 dwarfs and himself started a revolt and started picketing outside of the North Pole, just like a bunch of crazy liberals. And they got Santa to give them more than just porridge on Christmas Eve. Now they were free Masonic elves, and they started a secret society of their hidden knowledge of machining, and they pass it down to this day.
And so that was how they started this revolution, was by starting small, was saying we want more pay, more food on this day.
Yeah,
because they couldn't start to complete. But was their plan, in fact, to free their people, or is their plan to inhabit this planet and just shift the power and basically kill the new tyrannical Santa?
Yeah. They wanted to get rid of this new tyrannical Santa. So I didn't want to get into the nitty gritty juice of how they, did away with Santa, but
it's a famous folklore.
Think Gulliver's Travels.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's say they had a new pissing tree, huh? And and so yeah, when they came, they told them of their lineage. They're coming there to save them because of North Poles. All the planets North Poles, there is a Santa Claus story, and all of these elves are enslaved in all of the planets. And so they finally made it to Earth to tell him of his true lineage. And because he knew his true lineage, he decided to act out.
Well, I was thinking about that. Our most recent slow burn that we did, where we shifted it from a Sunday to a Wednesday, and we went on like the pagan roots of Christmas.
Oh wait.
Yes.
The end.
The end. Oh yeah, end scene. Okay, just because that was good. It was good for a while. I completely shit out there at the end. I do apologize. It was starting to envelop into such a larger story that I started to get some anxiety about like character development and like really trying to get. I was like, oh god, we've gotten ourselves like we did too good. So, but anyway, so talking about the pagan roots of Christmas and everything, and looking at the see, even when you say like pre-Christian, times, like there's always celebration around the equinoxes, right? We know this, but even like the Saint Nick story, up to a certain point is pretty sweet. It doesn't even have to be Saint Nick as Odin. It's like the Saint Nicholas archetype itself is actually a pretty awesome story, to be honest. But what we have now is we have like the commercialized version of the Coca-Cola Santa,
Right, because it's more about giving than it is about receiving.
Yeah.
We before, when I had family and everything, we used to have the kids take up all of their old stuff that they had outgrown or don't use anymore, toys and clothes, and then go and donate that to the shelter or to Goodwill, so that way they could give and then receive, so that they, kept that balance. I don't do that anymore because I don't have a family really anymore, but not the dichotomy anyway.
Yeah, well, no, I totally hear you because, as a, was there, or what am I saying? I was there, I had I'm alone on the farm, but I enjoy it, but I still went out to town and there was people out in town and went and like, gave joy, because really it is like, it's just everybody's just wanting to, it's okay socially to like be a bit more loving, and like when you go outside or just to people in general, the holiday spirit. So that's really a beautiful thing. There's nothing better than that, man, when everybody's just fucking happy, and it's like, but it just goes to show you how much the system is controlled in that sense, like it doesn't need to be designated to a celestial power.
And I would say, like, unlike Santa, who makes a list of who's naughty and nice, I think it's also good to give those people gifts who have been naughty too, because I think it makes them more aware that people do care about them, because a lot of these people that act out in that type of way feel lonely or sad or down on their luck, and so they become Grinches or like Mr. Scrooge. And then when you
he was a lonely guy with some trauma.
Yeah, it changes their vibration, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's what we do here on RFTAs. We share the love on the daily, baby. We love to give random strangers the smile. But hey, you got to make sure you're protecting yourself, because sometimes there's just straight natural crazy. Like, you take it to...
Speak softly, carry a big stick.
Yeah, just until the point where the guy's like trying to stuff you in his trunk. You're like, oh...
I love you, man.
I love you still. I understand why you're doing this. You are traumatized and had a twisted background, and when your mama dropped you on your head.
The book of Job, right? Job is completely afflicted by every possible bad thing that could happen to him, but he still holds faith. That's a powerful story, man.
You know, and I love those Job smoking papers. Some people think they say Job, but I think they say Job, Book of Job, because it's a book of papers, you know? And so I always think that's kind of like weird. Put that archetype on those those rollies. But okay, so what I was saying though about our slow burn and what I wanted to bring up was it wasn't until afterwards, actually. It was Jenny Brewster that posted in the Telegram chat the video, the famous video now, it's like 3 years old, of Jim Carrey talking about Kundalini energy and the Christ oil activation and that story of Santa Claus. Did you watch that video by chance?
No, I didn't actually.
Oh, here, I'll play it for you and everyone can just listen to audio because it's actually awesome. But it's basically talking about, you know, the 33 vertebrae in the spine. And it going up to... Oh, yeah.
I did watch this, yeah.
You've seen this one? Let me know if you can hear this. Let me know if you can hear this when it happens. Oh, you don't hear that, do you?
Barely. I hear it because it's coming through on your side, and I'm hearing it through.
It's also the story of Santa Claus, why he comes down...
It needs to be a little louder.
All right. Listen, everybody, hold up. Okay, Dan's pretty new at this. I have to walk him through this step by step. Okay. Some people will say, Roman,
they already know you're the one playing it.
Oh, apparently he's the one playing it. But listen, all right, share sound. Boom. That's how you do it.
He tells everybody this all the time, and he's the one that gets it wrong.
Don't listen to him.
Everybody else.
Don't listen to him.
Everybody else.
Don't listen. Okay, here we go.
And if you don't squander that essence, that sexual essence, it ascends again and goes back up to heaven. It's also the story of Santa Claus. Why he comes down the chimney is because this juice or this whatever substance actually passes what's called the claustrum, which is where they got Santa Claus.
Yo, what's up, Kings? Hope you guys...
Oh, okay. So that's the wrong video because he goes into a little better of an explanation. But so I looked it up, and claustrum is very real. It's a real part of the skull and part of the brain, the blood-brain barrier. And you know, I'm 6 to 7 years deep in my yoga practice, and so what happens after a certain amount of time when your spine gets more flexible? When you bend over and do a forward fold and you kind of like, you can accentuate your spine down more and it'll actually click. It'll go click, 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 click. And it'll be your spine. Basically, it's almost like someone popping your back, but it just aligns your spine and those things separate. And what can happen is you'll come up and you'll be like lightheaded. And I've had some severe experiences with this where I've actually fallen backwards or like I've almost passed out from so much of this. Like, I didn't really know what was happening for a long time, but it wasn't until a couple weeks ago when we did that slow burn and then Jenny posted that thing and I was like, oh, interesting. I started looking it up, and you know, these spinal fluids where like psychedelics are, they say like get consolidated and trapped into your spine. And, you know, so I thought that was really interesting. This, like, you know, you have the polar symbolism, you have all this like interesting connections to the spine too. Like some say the caduceus is supposed to be the spine. And, you know, like the scepter, you know, just, you know, even like a snake in general. I don't know, you know, it's interesting, man. And I just want people to get that spine juice flowing, because I've almost had like, when I woke up from these little experiences and it was just a couple seconds long, I would literally be there. I'd be like, I'd have to stay for a second and ask myself who I am until I came back in and was like, oh my God, okay. I almost thought I was lost my mind there for a little bit. It's insane.
I heard like acid, like when you take acid, that's pretty much what it does. Is it like makes your brain melt and it drips onto your spinal cord, and that's what causes you to have the illusion. So I guess that would be somewhat in the same vein, I guess, of that claustrum and the fluid coming from your skull dripping onto your spine. But he was talking in that little video clip you played. He was talking about not releasing your semen, right? The retention.
Yeah, I think they later go into
and
semen.
how that builds up in your system. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's like you have to like also like intention too, like intention with semen retention, because like I think like some people naturally just
There's
obviously
your next single.
semen retention intentional semen retention. What up? We are the tortilla chip flavored soda pop, and we have our new album coming out, Intentional Semen Retention. It's actually neuropop mixed with synth bliss. And mega shoe glaze super glue fans are gonna come out. We're gonna have new NPR RMPs, Bitcoin lodged into a brand new hyper crypto wallet. You guys will be able just to auto zoom us any sort of cellular nuggets, and we'll be able to pop them open within our free vault launch that should be coming within the year 2163, and we'll be able to visit you guys in the toilet bowl space.
Yeah, dude, you're like the human Mad Libs, I swear.
But I short circuit after a certain time, and then I just have to. But anyways, the spine stuff, man, it's there's something to it. I think some people have more juice built into them, and like some people that can take a shit ton of acid or whatever without, and like they get pulled in after like taking a certain amount of these drugs, like they probably have less of this stuff, and then people who are like super sensitive to it might have more of it. What's interesting about that Stargate Atlantis show, they touch in on the whole like blood type of the ancients kind of bloodline stuff, because the guy walks in, he's supposed to be just like the right hand of this other guy who was supposed to just stop at Stargate for a second, do a meeting. He told the guy not to touch anything. The guy goes near all this technology, it just starts lighting up. And so they're like, whoa, like, who are you? You must have like this, this a lot of these ancient genetics. And he's like, I don't even know. And they're like, you can consciously control all this technology just by like being here. And it's like really easy for you. We have to try really hard. And so I think there's something to that where it's like, there's probably more of like the shaman bloodline type of thing that gets handed down, or like and it's like those bloodlines might have more of this ability to tap into these different oils or whatever, or there's certain practices that can be intact that create more of these things. And if they live that royal family or the bloodline, whatever, are doing these practices and eating these foods and, more of this substance that, that makes you have those experiences, because I think that's what a lot of the occult practice is really tied to, is like having these heightened out of body experiences,
Yeah, for sure. Totally. Totes
my goats,
brah.
Totes you'll my goats.
But yeah, also like I just want to say thanks to the Fire Tribe for listening, and
yes, for real,
everything for this year. And it's been a fun year for us, and we're going to be going hard into the next year. And we have a lot of fun doing the show and talking to the people that we get to talk to, but we couldn't do it without you guys listening. So thank you. We appreciate you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's. This is the last show of the year. And we're pulling one from the Patreon archives with Ryan Bledsoe. We get into all kinds of topics more than just aliens on there. We talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. Interestingly enough, we talk about Scotia and the princess of Egypt. And we just recently did a show with Ralph Ellis about this very matter. And as we pull out of Egypt, we kind of did like a whole few months of paranormal type of stuff. But the last like kind of historical stuff we're doing was about Egypt. And so now we're coming out of Egypt and coming into the Isles in Northern Europe. And it's very interesting. And this Scotia story connects to that very thing about Scotland and where the name came from. So I thought it was very interesting that we chose to put this on. And then when I was re-listening, I was like, oh man, we've been talking about a lot of these things, and these are kind of going to be some of the stuff that's upcoming into the next year. So it's a perfect transition and a great interview with Ryan Bledsoe. So we hope you guys enjoy that. It's our gift to you. And in the spirit of giving, make sure that you share your favorite episodes too. Like if you have an episode that you really enjoyed, share it on Instagram, share it on Facebook, share it wherever you share shit at. Tell your friends about it. Have them listen to it. Talk to them about it after they listen to it. Whatever, it's not always about money, but share what you like from the show. We appreciate it. Then in turn, we will share it on our Instagram as well. And also, if you want to get some gifts or pay homage to us, you can also donate $3 a month and get some Patreon episodes, or you can make one-time donations through Patreon, or you can buy some merch. And where can they find our new merch store?
It's at link. It's a long link. We'll post it in the show notes. But yeah, we got a new merch store that we're using, and it's pretty great. So yeah, go and check that out. There's yoga mats, bucket hats, coffee mugs, socks, backpacks, shirts, shorts, no sweatpants, because it's like before we design any of those, we got to order a sample to see what the kind of quality they're going to be. There's a new type of a pant material that I like that's like super loose fit, but I don't think they got those ones on there. Anyways, there'll be a link in the description. Anyway. I want to try something real quick. Hold on, I have an idea. It's supposed to sound a little cooler than that. Almost sounded cool though, right?
Bless. Kind of sounded like you're blasting off in a space bong. All right.
Oh, sweet.
Well, I mean, you want to talk a little bit about the last few months of paranormal activity?
Yeah, man. Well,
it's been pretty interesting. We've been on kind of Lowell Johnson fucking blew my mind still to like this day. Anytime I tell anybody about the show or anybody asks about how it's doing, I say, you need to go check out that episode with Lowell Johnson. Just because it was so great just to talk to the guy. He's full of energy, full of life, and his story is insane in a way, but also so fucking cool. And it's these types of interviews that we get to do that are mind-blowing and impactful like this, that changes my perspective on what I think sometimes. My perspective goes back and forth all the time on different topics, but I really, really enjoyed the conversation with him, and as well as a lot of the other people that we had on talking paranormal stuff. The guy from MUFON was awesome. I forget his name at the moment.
Preston Dennett.
He was fucking pretty cool.
I really enjoyed our first episode we did into that. It was the Chaz of the Dead episode. That was like our first one in the paranormal. That one was really fun. I really dug his energy because he was like, I think he was like a couple PBRs deep and it was like smoking spliffs the entire time, but he just kept riffing, dude. And I was just like, dude, I like this guy a lot. And he had like the most takeaway for me for that. And I need to re-listen to find that scientist name that he references about the cellular structured effect, where it's like they basically modeled some anti-gravitic machines off of the shape, the geometrical shape of the bug's wings and like the moth wings and these different basically gravity defying insects. And because that to me was supremely fascinating and made a lot of sense, because it was like, how are these how are these animals or bugs or whatever able to fly so effortlessly? And it's not because how they move their wings, it's what their wings are made of. And it's like thinking about the consciousness that has to go, the conscious creation that has to go into making that. Is it the animal or the bug itself? Is it the consciousness of that created it over this passive time of evolution, or is it simply that it is just a part of the cosmic code? It's there and a part of a bigger bug species that lives outside in space. Space bugs to me makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I like to watch a lot of sci-fi, so there's a lot of like these interpretations as to what extraterrestrial beings can be, and a lot of times it's just like floating consciousness in a dust particle form, and like and then it can like intact your it can't take physical form, but it can make you think that you're seeing it as a physical form when really it's just talking to you while you're passed out, or space bugs. Anyways, that was my favorite one of the paranormal months. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, we also talked to Raven again, and he talked to us about some ghost that he has in the shop.
Yep.
I thought that was pretty fascinating too. Just like, the whole idea of this energy that gets stuck in places from these like very severe deaths or malicious type deaths, murders and stuff like that. Suicides, you often hear too, like that spirit gets trapped. And it's so like across the spectrum that it's like, what is it about this energy that is like staying in the place? Why is it not being able to be released? And you can get into souls and essence and energies and all of that stuff and riff on all kinds of different ways of it being possible. But I think that the fact is something is going on there. Science hasn't proven any shit. So that's left up to us to make speculation on and find out answers to.
Yep.
So I think it's awesome to have different ideas about it and not stay within one idea. And it could be lots of different things. Why does it have to be one thing? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. From my understanding, I will say that when doors are open, when you're like doing some rituals of having the soul leave the body, when done right, it's like in a closed environment and there's like supposed to be a one opening in the room, and that's where the soul should go. But if that like gets broken, or if there's some sort of like intentional effect to like fuck that up, then apparently it can stay around. Like apparently if having a door open in some of these ceremonies and rituals like the soul or spirit can actually like leave out there, you know, and go outside and then not properly. I don't know, you know, it's mainly the story. I'm pulling off a lot of the like the Baroque ceremonies where they were doing like the old Baroque style architecture with the rotundas and the Henry Flagler death. We have talked about a bit, you know, where
Yeah, another person you mentioned a lot on there, because this interview is back from like May or June.
I think I was in Florida
with
for
Ryan
this one.
Bledsoe. Yeah, you had just like were you there at the time? Yeah,
I
you
think
might
I was
have
there.
been.
Yeah, I think I was there.
Yeah.
I
And
remember
you're just finding this stuff out, so it's fascinating.
it was
Because
the
you
day
started
I
talking
went
about
to St. Augustine, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you were talking about the mirror thing. What was that called?
The psychomantium.
Psychomantium. And
Yeah.
ironically, Raven in the episode said that he accidentally built a psychomantium because with all these mirrors and shit, and the spirit was in there. So, you know, everything has been coming around full fucking circle. So it's been really fascinating. And then little Preston didn't talk to us about UFOs and all kinds of different stuff. I thought a lot of the very much we got into leaving your body and what's that called? That type of sleep.
Sleep paralysis or lucid dreaming?
No, where your soul, lucid dreaming, where your soul can leave your body and go venture out. So we got into probably a good half hour or more with Preston about that, and that's super fascinating. And we talked to Elsie King. We're kind of all over the place on that one. Electric Universe, Electric Cosmos.
Yeah, I wanted some good Trinity stuff there too, and I think we went into a lot of music at the end. I think you pieced out. You're like, I'm out of here.
Electromagnetic energies. Yeah. Once you start talking about food for an absorbent amount of time, it's like, okay, Rowan's done. I'm like, all right, the conversation is over at this point. And then David Elkington, which I showed up late to.
That was a good one.
Also another great episode. Yeah, I really like these like deep authors that have like seemingly explored so many different ideas and concepts and history.
Yes.
They're always fun to talk to and kind of like break down your brain knowledge and tell you how dumb you actually are because of how smart they actually are. You know, you're like, I really don't know shit, do I? Because when you get into some of the stuff in details, it just opens up more ideas, and you kind of just go, wow, there's just so much more that I don't know. So that's why we kind of do theme months, because it helps us piece together these different ideas into one little ball instead of having them all over the place. So it helps me, helps hopefully you guys listening, the Fire Tribe, helps you like put these things into perspective and build them up synchronetically and see the bigger picture of what's going on in the area. I love that about our show, and I think that's great. And I'm glad that we're sticking with that idea. Also, Von Galt, you guys were talking about all kinds of crazy stuff on that show. Merkabas, energies,
Black Dolphins, leprechauns.
Yeah, that was fucking leprechauns. But yeah, it's so crazy how, you know, all this stuff gets intertwined, from the slow burns that we do to, I mean, probably because it's on our mind, and then we were starting to get other aspects as well. I haven't tuned in for the slow burns. You should check us out someday on There's the reruns if you can't make it, but check those out on YouTube. And then we talked to Arden, and in the interview with Ryan Bledsoe too, he said that he's super into solfeggio and the sacred sounds and all that stuff. It'd be interesting to hear Ryan Bledsoe and Chance talk if they haven't already. I'm not 100% sure, but maybe they have.
Yeah, I like this one with Ryan. I really like his story. I mean, like, you know, to come from the Bledsoe family must be really interesting. I mean, just to have so much paranormal stuff tied to your guys' name. You know, we're out here just having our, like, I see something in the sky and I'm like, oh my God. But these motherfuckers are like seeing orbs, you know, and having like actual true encounters. And so, and they've even had like his dad's famous, basically. I mean, like, these guys were involved with the fucking feds, so super sick. Yeah,
mixing
man.
in with the big wigs and trying to figure out. You know, he's trying. We kind of went all over the place. We didn't really talk a whole lot about the story of his father being abducted. We got into a little bit, but really it was like the kind of the limbs or the branches from that tree that kind of set his whole life in motion and wanting to be able to understand these things more and what was going on. So he kind of dived into a lot of the topics that we've talked about on the show, about a lot of the topics other people talk about also. But that's kind of what really set him into like the historical aspect of figuring things out and the paranormal aspect and these types of things. So it was fun to talk to him about those types of things because he's really involved in just trying to figure out what's going on with his whole life, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, his podcast is cool too. I like how they structure their show. Bledsoe said so. I'd like to actually talk to him again since it's been a few months.
Yeah, it'd be great.
You know?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I feel like we could easily chat about a bunch of different shit. So maybe we'll set that up and then put that in the Patreon. And but maybe before we wrap up here, let's really tell everybody, because we have a few interviews that we've pre-recorded and we're gonna get going, because, you know, as we do themed months now, it's like we're actually can't just take any guest that'll say yes, even though we are emailing a lot and trying to get guests in general. Now we have to find specific authors and specific themes. But let's
harder, yes.
You know, we've talked about it here and there a little bit, but maybe we'll give some juice as to what we are going to be getting into here.
Yeah, man. I mean, I have a whole list of ideas right here. Definitely Ireland and Scotland and ancient Britain.
But what about Ireland and Scotland and ancient Britain? What about these areas that intrigues you to dive this direction?
The mythology, the sacred sites, the architecture that exists there, how old it is, where it comes from, who are the peoples that came there, where did those peoples come from? It is kind of this worldwide culture almost that people think is all separated, but it's all seemingly part of the same culture. It's very interesting. It's intriguing to me to get into this because the idea of the Hebrews and where did they come? So are they actually from Ireland or Spain, or they're all intriguing type things? Just the whole idea of the Druids of Ireland. You see these Druid type figures or magicians or whatever in a lot of different religious type things, you know, or folk tales or all of that stuff. And even they have crossover with biblical stuff. We talked about the one guy from Ireland who came over to the Middle East to get the head of John the Baptist, and he was a Druid. So they have some crossover even with biblical tales of Sam Simon Magus, I think. Simon the Magician. And then ancient Scotland, Scotia, the mythos behind Scotland, and some of the sacred sites there. Ancient Britain and England, also mythos and the King Arthur story, the whole Holy Grail. Where does all that fit into everything? There's stories about King Arthur connecting to Polaris. There's stories about him connecting to Jesus. Is Polaris all of these types of stories, or is it something else? I don't know. There's so many different ideas going on. I'm looking forward to breaking down some of these thoughts in the months that we do.
Yes.
To try to look at it at different angles, because there is a lot of angles, a lot of angels. King James, the Reformation, some of the different occultists that came out of Western Europe.
Yeah, it'll be a bit before we get into the Reformation, though, right? For
real.
Because like
about halfway through the year.
For me, the I'm the most stoked for just really, really understanding more of like we're talking like the Scotia mystics, Druids, Celtic, like anything Gaelic and Celtic, and the Gauls, like Goetic, like really like that, the super mystic magical period. And those stories, that's what, like, it just fascinates me. We know that there's so much magical lore to these old lands in old Europe, and so to kind of like break a lot of those barriers down and to talk to authors directly about those time periods, and oh man, we're gonna get juicy and we're gonna connect some fucking dots. It's gonna be insane.
Yeah. Also, the Renaissance time period, paintings and like Da Vinci, famous artists, Michelangelo, how this played a part in society, and all of technology. A lot of paintings of Leonardo da Vinci were inventions, so some of that, some ancient paranormal stories for later in the year when we kind of do paranormal again, but take it back to ancient paranormal mysteries. And then Scottish Freemasonry and the Hellfire Club, and whatever else like kind of pops into our brains while we're doing some of these shows. If another good idea pops up, well, I want to, the Rosicrucian Enlightenment. What's that one castle called? The Rose, forget. But
are you talking about the tomb of Rosencruz?
No,
I was gonna say that.
There's a very famous castle in Scotland, Roslin Chapel.
Oh, the Roslin Chapel. Yes.
Yes.
See. I was gonna say this book, man.
It's all very
I don't know if you have any Francis Yates. But Francis Yates was an awesome Hermetic revivalist author that was around in the 70s. And this book, specifically the Rosicrucian Enlightenment, is all about right at the Reformation, the turning of the Reformation, and the Renaissance period, right when Queen Elizabeth I is getting coronated. But obviously she gets into all like the really juicy esoteric parts of that.
Which connects into your homeboy Flagler, right? He was a Rosicrucian.
I'm not sure what clubs he was tied to, actually, to be honest with you. Okay. But I mean, I can't answer to that, actually. But I just talking about that's what I have the most books on. I don't have any books on Druidism or ancient Celts or anything like that, which is unfortunate, because
I got a lot of those. Yeah.
Well, hey, maybe you can tell us a book to get on Audible that you like to juice people up for this stuff. You got a piece somewhere people can start to get going on this.
I mean, on Audible, shit.
Oh, you don't got none on Audible?
I do.
Tell us your library.
July's End with Black Swans by Dylan Sakosio. The Mythical People of Ireland by Martin K. Ettington. Fairies by Morgan Daimler. My whole library. I did The Vampire, a case book by Alan Dundas. 1177 BC by Eric Klein, who is a guest that we are trying to get on the show. The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. The Exodus from Egypt and the Desert of Aminta by Gerald Massey, narrated by Graham Dunlop. The Egyptian Wisdom and the Revelation of John the Divine by Gerald Massey, narrated by Graham Dunlop. Esoteric Structure of the Alphabet by Alvin Boyd Kuhn. Origins of the Gods by Andrew Collins. The Prose Edda by Snorri Sturluson. A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis by Sarah Bressman Cosme. Myths of Pre-Columbian America, Donald McKenzie, narrated by Graham Dunlop. Uncovering Norse Mythology by Lucas Russo. Ovid's Metamorphosis. Temporarily Insane by Carl Borgen. The 13th Tribe, Arthur Koestler. Atlas and the Antediluvian World by Ignatius Donnelly. When God Had a Wife by Lynn Pickett and Clive Prince. When Women Ruled the World by Kara Cooney. The Struggle for World Sanity by Wahid Hassan. Scotland's Hidden Sacred Past by Freddie Silva, who's another guest we need to get on for these upcoming months. The Bhagavad Gita. The Immortality Key by Brian C. Mararescu. The Saga of the Volsungs by Jackson Crawford. The Kebra Nagast by Ziggy Marley. Or that's what it says. Introduction. Goblecki Tappy, Andrew Collins, The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John.
You don't have to really go through your whole list, though. I think we're good on the. We're just looking for the Irish and Celtic stuff.
I have like 20 more. I listen to a lot of books.
No, I know.
I'm able to at work all day, so when I get bored of podcasts, I just put a book on, or if we have somebody coming on the show or one of our topics, I try to listen to some books and some information so I can glean some insight into what the people we have coming on are talking about. Helps my brain prepare for what's coming up.
No, it's all good. I was just really trying to get like one or two recommendations about specific Celtic or Irish.
Well, you can cut those out if you would like.
No, we love it. I mean, I just kept it going.
You told me to read the whole thing.
He's already reading it. No, I know. I was being sarcastic. I figured after a couple of years of podcasting, you'd be able to sense some sarcastic tones, but
I mean, you're sarcastic 90% of the time, so I don't know.
Oh, now he sounds like my ex-girlfriend saying the same exact thing. When are you ever serious, Roman? When are you ever serious? Why does everything have to be a joke? She's not wrong. There's some serious seated issues. Anyways.
Anyways, Audible is great.
Audible is great. Audible's fantastic. I have one credit. I have one credit to use, and I was actually saying it to tell the people, but I was really like, Dan, can't you just tell me? Can you just tell me a book to get on Audible? Which one should I try? Because I try to use my one credit a month wisely, and sometimes I get some fucking bogus botobule bullshit. All right, since you read your Audible list, I'll read mine. We're there. Okay. I think we have some copies too.
Some stuff is really hard to find. Like not everything is on Audible, so you kind of have to be a little picky and choosy with what you get, especially because you just get one credit a month, like it's gone. So I make sure when I do get it, I get books that are like 7 hours or more to like use my credit on. You know what I mean?
That's why I love.
And I listen to the sample first to see if it's something that I even want to listen to for 7 hours.
Narrators' voices are very much so. I mean, like obviously, if it's like proper theatrics, I'm fucking into it. And in some narrators' voices, you think you hate, but then you end up liking it a lot. So
yeah, they grow on you.
They grow on you, you know. So let's see. We got Mysteries of the Dark Moon by Demetra George. The Gods Never Left Us by Eric von Daniken. The Three Magical Books of Solomon. Ooh, this is a good one. Meeting the Other Crowd by Eddie Lenahan. It's about fairies and the Fae Lord. We have The Essential Dogen by Kazuaki Tanahashi. A Field Guide to Demons. Dogen. Yeah, Dogen. The Essential Dogen. It's some poetry. Okay. I haven't listened to it yet, actually. 6 hours. I got A Field Guide to Demons, Vampires, Fallen Angels, and Other Submersive Creatures. The Feminine Occult, a collection of women writers on the subjects of occult. The Witch by Ronald Hutton. The Vampire, a Casebook by Alan Dundes. The Esoteric Structure of the Alphabet by Alfred Boyden Kuhn, narrated by our boy Graham Dunlop.
So that's a great book. If anybody is looking for like a good quick one to listen to and read with lots of information that kind of really breaks shit down, the Esoteric Structure of the Alphabet is a fantastic.
It's good, and Alfred Boyden Kuhn was a prolific theosophist, so he wrote that cryptic theosophical Madame Blavatsky style. It's a great book. And he has some other works that are really good, but they're not on Audible. The Great Pyramid Void Enigma by Scott Creighton, in which we spoke with on the show. Yes. The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. The Mirror of Alchemy by Roger Bacon, which is stupid to have on Audible. I bought the regular copy. The collections of writings related to occult esoteric Rosicrucian by HPV, Cosmogenesis by HPV, Forgotten Peoples of the Ancient World by Philip Matsaik, The Wisdom of the Ancients by Francis Bacon. Fantastic fucking book. The Wisdom of the Ancients by Francis Bacon, narrated by Robert Frederick, is really good. Myths of Pre-Columbian America by Donald Mackenzie, narrated by Graham Dunlop. 11-hour listen. 11-hour book. The Hieroglyphic Monad by John Dee, narrated by Maya Longaman. Oh, this one's good. I've recommended this one a lot. It's called The Fourth Turning by William Strauss and Neil Howe. It is a book on these two guys in the 90s got together. They were like, hey, man, you ever noticed how society kind of moves in cycles? It's kind of crazy. Do you wonder if there's like a pattern to the universe in which we kind of like keep falling into as a society as it rises and falls and ebbs and flows throughout time and history? They're like, yeah, man, let's totally do it. And then they wrote a fucking book called The Fourth Turning, and it literally goes through history, breaking down these cycles, and they've come up with an algorithm basically that has these 4 different periods. And yeah, anyways, it was written in the mid 90s, and they talked about, they made some pretty cool predictions. Here's one. The Struggle for World Sanity by Wahid Hassan. Remember that guy? Remember our buddy?
Yeah. I mentioned that book too. Yeah.
Oh, you did? You son of a bitch. He's awesome. I want to talk to him again.
Yeah, we should. That was earlier in the year, January.
Yeah, man.
When we did God.
I liked him a lot. Anyways,
God, and then February did Divine Feminine.
March we did Return to Atlantis, Return to Tantaria. Return to Tanty. Tantrumville.
Tantaria? What's Tantaria, dude? That's
Oh
the new
man, ooh, it is a chocolate city, made of sweet cacao beans.
Also, we did a lot of good shit,
Yeah, we're a fantastic podcast. People say it. My
Really?
mother is
Really?
definitely one
That's
of them
awesome.
people's. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Esoteric Eddie, Luciferian, who's Lucifer? That was a good one. Bruce de Torres, David Matheson, and Wahid Hassan was January. And then Ed Dodge, Goodness of the Goddess, Navier and Sabaya, Divine Feminine, Aurora, remember Aurora, Light Beyond the Rainbow, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Lisa Gupta was also a very excellent interview from somebody we pulled off of Instagram, who was just a normal everyday person living in India.
That was a great
Marco
conversation, though, dude.
Vagato.
That was a good chat.
It really was. Yeah, it was great.
That was her first time podcasting. She did such a good job, and she brought a lot of light. I mean, yeah, like, it's great to talk to people that don't live, in California. So anytime we do that, I'm like, awesome. What's it like over there? Because, ridiculous over here. Tell us your life.
Yeah, then in February or March, we got into Atlantis, actually. And it was Marco Vagato, Lon Galt, who was just on the last episode, Marty Leeds, and Andreas Exertus, who we need to get back on the show again, too. And then we had some Sarah Bressman Cosme, that mishap. And then we got into Ancient America with Grant Dunlop, Esoteric Eddie, Tex Kelly Polka. Fantastic fucking episode 57. If nobody has listened to that yet, that was a super great episode. I love how you just listening to a mythological story, is just so much fucking fun. And you can pluck out like all the different things from it, that exist in our reality, and the message behind it. It's fucking fascinating. Karen Mutton of Submerged Cities and Sunken Cities. Rick Osman, another awesome
so good,
guest.
Man. So good.
Still reference him in a lot of the shows that we do. Episode 59. Slick Dissident double feature on number 60, Trouble Council Bonfire. That was 2 that we pulled from Patreon also, with Gabe. Then Abducted in America with Raven Wolfson. And then we got into and then Howdy Mikowski, All's World's Fair in Love and War. And Emmanuel Kingman, Adam Stokes, number 64, Riding on the Backs of Giants, who you guys have been hearing in some of the intros. We will be reconnecting with Adam soon. It's been a very busy last couple of months with Christmas time. Corey Daniel, Igniting the Phoenix Enigma, number 66. Peter Shampoo, another fabulous one. I think you did that solo. Michael Wan and Ross Bin. This is when we got into like your Esoteric America show with Mark. This kind of blasted that idea off. And then you guys got together and decided to create a show with Chad Simke, who is the next guest. And Esoteric America is one of my favorite shows to listen to. I'm excited to see what you guys do with the new format on there.
Oh man,
I really like listening to I really like listening to like some of the people that are kind of rookies and just kind of doing this information on their own, and also some of the like personal stories that people bring to their place of reference, you know. So it's good to hear that, but I'm interested in seeing like how you guys, all 4 or 5 of you, kind of do research and bring it together. Hopefully, it's kind of a lot like we do on the slow burns, and you guys pick out different aspects and then bring it together and then see how they all connect.
Let's just put it this way. Let's put it this way.
Synchronistic type manner. It's going to be interesting, man.
Let's put it this way. Our buddy Chad is an OG.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like
Yeah,
we've
totally.
done like 3 episodes on Austin, Texas alone, like just us doing stuff, and it seems to be the theme is like I'll get into like the boring white Masonic history guys of like, you know, who was starting the lodges and like who the rivers are named after, and Mark has his style of what he goes at, and then Chad comes in with like slides that he's edited, and you know, just the way he does it, I'm just like, he just blows us out of the water. So it's really just a way for us to can have Chad have his own fucking podcast because he's so good at it and amazing. So
Yeah.
it's really a great opportunity to work with him, and it's an honor and pleasure, and I do love it.
I would like to hear him say more too, and ask more questions.
You should listen to these last couple episodes, man. You should listen to these last couple episodes.
No, I have. I already have. Yeah.
Where he brought up,
I keep up with
in
that
Austin.
one.
Oh, well, we have. I wonder if more. Okay. Anyways, we're getting off into some other shit, but keep going on the list here.
Yeah. Khufu. We had Khufu and John decoding Pittsburgh. That was actually a really good one, I thought. A lot of stuff came up in that one. Not a lot of people listened to that one, but I thought the content in it was pretty awesome. And then we got into Norse mythology. We had Raven Wolfson back, Benjamin Balderson, Freddie Silva, and Kadrick Olson. So we went into magic, we went into sacred sites, we went into mythology, and we went into more mythology. So those were all very good. Then we brought back Esoteric Eddie, Once Upon a Time in Babylon. So this is when we got into Egypt, I guess. Yeah, Egypt and Sumeria. Then Raven again for Antediluvian World. I think that was just me. That's more or less a bonus show. And then Scott Creighton, we got into Egyptian pyramids. Scott Creighton was great. Johnny Cool and Trevor Scott was another actually good one, who are just friends of yours. But it's a personal experience that was like the cool connection in that episode, you know, with Johnny and his watchers, his family of what do we call?
He's got the bloodline
watchers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bloodline. Yeah, that's interesting. Professor Rupert Till. I think I missed this one. This must have been one you did on your own.
Songs of the Stones. Yeah, that was a great one, man.
Yeah, that was actually a really good episode. I listened to it afterward.
Well, he has done specific research deep into Stonehenge, and he's a music teacher at a university in England, not the University of England, but one of them. And he's just a super nice guy who loves music. He literally, you could tell when you talk to him, he just loves music and sound. And so he gets to travel all around the world to be the first person on the scene, basically, to take sound samples and do archaeoacoustics, because he's got that scholarly position where he's like able to, you know, since he did the Stonehenge thing, he's just like one of these top guys, and super cool, man. That was a great one. And yeah, just a random little bonus show of the year, man. Such a good year. Keep going.
Then Jeffrey Drum, Chemical.
Oh my,
Egypt.
that was a great one as well. Who do we bring on with that? Juan?
No, Balderson.
Oh, we brought on Ben. That's right. Did Ben ever get around to talking to him on his
Yes,
show?
yes, he did. Yes,
nice.
He did.
Oh, I got to check that one out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that was number 80. Then 81 was Tess Clark, Antiquated Astronomy.
She's awesome.
82 was the amazing Cliff Dunning from Earth Ancients podcast, talking to us about the Mayans and trying to bring a little Egypt into it, making the connection. And then David Matheson, once again, bringing some of that astrotheology into it. And then we had on Sarah Bressman Cosme. The gang enters the Sphinx.
I love that title.
A hypnotist's journey to the Sphinx. I love actually talking to her. She's pretty fascinating. The things that she's able to pull out from people into deep hypnosis is fucking fascinating. And how that connects into the stuff that we're learning too. It's like, man, how do these people know this? There's something more to it, you know? And then that gets into, after that gets into all the other ones that we brought up for the paranormal with Chaz of the Dead, number 85. And with Chaz of the Dead, I heard him on a few other shows, so I was trying to push him into talking about some different kind of aspects that we weren't hearing on other places, you know. So we got a lot more into the bugs and anti-gravity and a lot of other types of things. He talked less about the little silver balls on our show as he did on some of the other shows. So I thought that was fascinating. And I tried to pull out some paranormal stuff in Florida too, because that's kind of been a running theme with Roman. And then he connects, you know. So, and then Tom Montauk, another great episode, number 92. If you guys haven't heard that one's a good one. My audio is a little shaky in that one because I was not at my microphone. I was on my phone. So I kind of don't like my audio in that. But the content was really good. And I'd like to get him on again also to talk about some of that history that he was bringing up with aliens. But in a more, he can bring it up still, but because history and aliens kind of go hand in hand now with ancient aliens and whatnot. A lot of people think or believe that, you know, aliens kind of supplanted humanity, which is fine. I don't care. But, you know, I do think it's a human origin story, not an alien origin story. But
I mean,
that's not to say that aliens couldn't have been around before the human origin story. Who knows? You know,
I think
I don't know. I kind of go back and forth myself on it.
I think the concept of like bacteria, you know, getting absorbed
like
into
Prometheus.
Like in a climate of another place, and then slowly, you know. I mean, you know.
Did you watch that movie Prometheus?
No, I've not watched that movie Prometheus.
It's like the prequel to Aliens, and an alien civilization comes from somewhere else and puts their DNA into the water, and once the DNA is into the water, it creates basically humanity.
Yeah, you know, like the concept of panspermia and all of that stuff. I mean, I don't think it's that far out of the realm to be like, well, if everything comes from somewhere else in space at some other time, then, you know, in theory, you know,
seems like it would, right?
It seems like it would.
Me, I think of space as like the galactic womb, and like these are all eggs waiting to be fertilized by meteors and comets or whatever the fuck they're called.
It's not about being disconnected. It's about being connected. It's connected.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Like a blanket.
Like a blanket woven together like a blanket.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So yeah, you need to hit up Montauk again too, because I want him to come do some more King Arthur shit.
Absolutely.
We did get a little bit into King Arthur on there. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'd like to talk to him a little bit deeper into that aspect more so than the aliens and stuff, and get into some of that history, because it seemed like he had a pretty good history background too. Like he knew a lot of shit. So
he's been reading and writing for 20 years. Like the guy's,
he looks young.
He looks younger than he is. Yeah, he's aged well. Yeah. He's got some great alien genes. You know, but I will say this:
he looks like he's about 20, and I think he's as old as I am. He's like 40 something.
I'll say this. Okay, we got to wrap it up. We have
wrap it up.
This is an intro. We have an entire episode behind this.
Yep. Yes, man. Yes, sir. This is the end of the year intro, though. We're wrapping up the whole year.
Good. Yeah.
And going into the next year, kind of combining it all together, giving you gifts and presents, and just share the love, Fire Tribe. That's all we ask. Help us grow by sharing. Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. Sharing. Just ask John D. and Edward Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you don't get that joke.
Wives, right?
You did get it. Okay, there we go. Yes.
I just said.
Okay. Well, you didn't laugh, so.
I get it. Well,
there we go.
I'm smiling, so fuck you.
Alrighty.
So wrap it up. Wrap it up, Roman.
All right, wrap it up. For the first time in my life, we are wrapping it up here and now to end the 2022 and into the 2023. 23andMe. How now the brown cow, Christ oil down into the spine. And Jesus. And to all a good night. Juicy. Hope that your love is shining bright as the sun. The reflective waters of your inner spirit bouncing with the tides and the waves of the celestial movements. We are already deep in it. We haven't even begun the interview with Ryan Bledsoe, but I assure you, here in just a matter of seconds, we are getting to it. Oh, nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Fire Tribe, welcome to
Rising
from the Ashes. I'm Danny Unaki Dan.
I'm the homie Romy. What is good?
What's good? You got a little intro set up for us, Roman?
I do. So today we are with an awesome man, preaching the paranormal, pulling the parachute cord connected to the sigil soul, connecting the dots of understanding through the weave of cosmic webs, whilst keeping it cool because, well, Bledsoe said so. Grays, greens, colloidal silver, hermetic greens, grays, splitting the bust of Medusa straight down the seams, the morphin orbs. Ryan Bledsoe, how are you doing, sir?
Doing great now, man. That was a hell of a ride, dude.
Well, I like to try to keep it poetic, man. Yeah, we were just chatting a lot before. We love getting into the juicy goodness of the the intros, the pre-intros, the podcaster intros, and talking about and some of your history with your pops and your guys' history. And man, it's so cool because I've had very limited paranormal experiences. And I think, Dan, what's your paranormal experiences? Zip.
Like zero, dude. I had a weird thing with a Ouija board one time, and that was about it. And I'm not even sure if it was real or a prank. So.
Oh, yeah.
Might have to explain that one.
Yeah, please, actually.
No, not right now.
No. Okay. Well, Ryan, do you want to?
Ryan's here. Let's talk to him.
Yeah, man. Do you want to give us like as much
history as you want. Like you could start as young as you want. You could start back with any part of your lineage. But what got you, Ryan Bledsoe, to be Bledsoe Said So?
Wow. Okay, we'll go back. So when I was 13 years old, my father, Chris Bledsoe Sr., and my brother, my oldest brother, Chris Bledsoe Jr., they went fishing on the Cape Fear River, which, by the way, it was 2007, and January 8th. And that night when they were fishing, they had these incredible encounters that today are known as some of the most documented UFO cases of all time. To go into incredible detail would eat up the whole hour, and then we'd need another 3. So I'll try to, I'll try to just move along at a good pace. But anyway, so they're fishing. My dad is at a real low place in his life. He's just basically sold his really successful business at a steal, and then there's a crooked deal on the other end. They didn't even follow through, didn't even get the money. We went bankrupt as a family. Long story short, we had to move out to the country, get rid of everything we had, and we had to start over in life. And keep in mind, I'm like a 13-year-old kid at this time, so it sucked, right? And anyway, so my dad, he is just at the end of his rope, and he basically is just ready to die, and he's out there fishing. He's not enjoying it. He's super depressed, and he basically is just in kind of like a silent prayer, like, God, I can't take this depression anymore. Just either turn me around or kill me, heal me or kill me. I can't deal with it anymore. So at some point he decides to walk away from the river from the rest of the guys. There were 5 present, including my dad. So my dad, my brother, and 3 of their coworkers. They were contractors, just got off of a big construction job. So they're celebrating and fishing. And anyway, so dad walks away. It's about a 15-minute walk back to the top of the woods edge where you can enter the river. Keep in mind, extremely isolated country forest. I mean, we're talking a mile out in the wilderness on a river with clay and grass and mud. It's not like streets and street lamps and things like that. It's very dark when it's nighttime, that is. So he walks up the trail, and when he gets to the top of the trail, he looks up on the horizon and he sees these 2 massive orange fiery balls. And his immediate thought was, it's a little early for the sunset, or maybe it's the sun setting or something to that nature. But then he realizes there's 2, and around about that time, a 3rd one shoots up and sits right beside it. So now he sees 3 massive orange balls of fire way out in the distance on the horizon, and he's freaking out, right? So he turns around and he runs back. It's about a 15-minute walk with a run. Maybe it's like 7.5, 10 minutes. He's really only gone in his perspective about 20, 25, 30 minutes. I'm going to not address this part yet, but just to kind of foreshadow, it turned out he was actually missing 4 hours. There was a full-scale investigation. He had a hypnotic regression, which opened up a lot of those memories. The other guys had been searching for him. So it's a little hard to tell the story linearly because of the missing time and how they all perceived it. So anyway, he gets back to the guys. At this point, it's nighttime. In his mind, it was, 30 minutes before dark when he's walking up there, so that's normal. But in reality, he was gone 4 hours, and it was about 11 p.m. or midnight or so. He gets back. My brother is freaking the hell out. Where have you been? Where have you been? I've just seen these things in the woods. And then at that point, my dad's also saying, I just saw UFOs. Now to switch perspectives here, when my dad had walked up the trail and then he ended up being missing for 4 hours, which again, he wasn't aware of this. It took him a year through an investigation to realize and accept that he had, been missing 4 hours. So during that 4-hour time, my brother was just kicking it, wanted to go look through the woods or fish or whatever. And he sees these red balls, these little red orbs kind of bobbing in the woods, and he sees them and he goes into the woods to see them. And as he gets closer, it turns out to be these 2 really short, 3 or 4 foot tall, translucent entities that were really shadowy, but they had this glow coming off of them because of their bright eyes. And when you got really close, their form, their body or whatever kind of looked like glass, like you could see through it, and it had a very soft glow. And at any given moment in this 2-hour period that my brother saw these entities, one of them was constantly staring in my brother's eyes. And during this time, my brother could not move. Still to this day, he's not sure if they were paralyzing him or if he was paralyzed with fear. He doesn't know. We don't claim to know, but the facts are he just couldn't move and he was stuck there for 2 hours. By the time my dad comes back down is when they got away from him. They went and they dove into like this pile of logs. And then my brother's, so now we're going back to before. My brother's freaking out. My dad's freaking out. He just had his encounter. They meet up. Everybody's fighting. The 3 other guys hadn't seen anything. They think they're making it up. And then somebody says, look, and they all look up in the sky, and about 8 what looked like stars, big, bright, white balls of light in the sky. They shot and scrambled around like all the stars in space scrambling. And then 1 or 2 of them shot down on the other side of the river and landed in the wood line. Because it's a massive river. On the other side is fully forest with just trees. And anyway, I thought it was 1. My brother said it was 2. I wasn't there. So shot down over there on the other side. And they're all freaking out. They're like, let's get the hell out of here. And they're thinking it's the end of the world. They're all fighting like who gets to go home to see their wives first, you know? And again, I'm kind of paraphrasing. I'm kind of skipping through the story because there's a lot. There's 15 years. And they all get in the truck and they start getting out of there, going home. They drop the other guys off. Dad and my brother go home. And later that night, my dad encounters an entity in the backyard. One of those that my brother saw in the woods, my dad saw it in the backyard. He stared it face to face, and my dad just kind of was like standing there like, oh my God, like, you got me. He said that to it. He said, you got me, you know, and the being put it in his head, like, you don't understand. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help you. And fast forward, my dad tells us about it. So this was I believe it was a Friday night. Keep in mind, I was 13, so it's hard for me to remember the dates or in the days of the week and stuff. But I know that I was out of town for the weekend at my grandmother's house across town. My mother, my other brother, Jeremy, myself, and my sister, we were staying with my mom's mom. So when I get home from school, the next school day, just brief backstory, my grandfather and my grandmother on my dad's side were my next door neighbor. And what I would do in the 8th grade was I would go to their house every day after school and I would watch TV with them. And then I'd go home and I'd watch TV because I had 2 brothers in high school, a sister in elementary school. My parents worked or did whatever they did. So I was alone for several hours by myself after school. And when I got to my grandparents' house that day, the first thing he said was, your dad's been smoking dope and he saw green booger man in the woods. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, you know, my dad, that's a true story. He really said that to me. And I didn't know what was going on, you know? So when I talked to my dad that night, he tells me all about it and my brother and what had happened. And the rest is kind of history. So my mom did not understand it. She didn't like it. She didn't believe it for the first several years. And she's still really not like on board. She doesn't exactly appreciate that this stuff has happened to us. And because of the fighting that was so bad between my mother and my dad and my brother about these experiences and how much it, quite frankly, terrified her, it escalated to a really bad situation. Like, you know, I remember being 13 or 14 and just being in shock because there's a preacher in my house trying to exorcise my dad of demons because they all thought my dad was possessed by the devil because he saw balls of light and entities in the woods. And it got really chaotic. For 10 months, my dad waited to report this to the public because of the fear of what would happen to his family. Would he lose his children? And sometime later, we were watching TV, my dad and I and a few of my siblings. And there was the show on called, it was either UFO Files. I think it was UFO Files. And it had, if you've had a sighting, reported at MUFON.com. So my dad goes on MUFON.com. He types up his sighting. And within days, MUFON says, wow, that's really interesting. Let's do like an investigation on this. We'd like to send a packet to you in the mail and please draw what it is that you experienced. Have your son draw the entity. I want you to draw the entity and draw the craft and the orbs you saw. So he did. He sent it back in the mail. Right around a couple days, immediately they said, oh my gosh, we'd like to send an investigator to your property. So they did. Nice guy, local North Carolina volunteer from MUFON. Oh, by the way, MUFON is Mutual UFO Network. It's this big company that pretends to not be affiliated with the government. Totally is. Total crock of crap. Anyway.
Yeah, not to sidetrack, but maybe we could touch on that later on that organization.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'd love to. Yeah. Anyway, so MUFON, they say, oh man, we'd like to send somebody out. So the guy comes out, meets my dad face to face, and they start having chats. And then this guy, he's a very nice guy. Like I said, he was just a free volunteer. He wasn't like a higher up at MUFON. He's not accountable for anything that happened next. But this guy, Steve, reports back to MUFON and says, I believe this is a CE4, which means close encounter of the fourth kind, abduction case. And I think we should probably do like a full scale investigation. So he sends that back. Then a few weeks or months later or whatever, the director of MUFON, the entire organization, we went from little local volunteer guy to the top of the entire organization. Personally comes out with an investigator who worked at Homeland Security, and he brings a Discovery Channel documentary crew, and they do a documentary about our family.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's totally up. Like you could go watch it. It's been out for 14 years now. And
I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Probably, man. And it's called UFOs Over Earth. And anyway, so they gave us all these promises that like our family was going to be vindicated and they were going to show us to the world and how like our story is so incredible and all this. And then when it came out, it turned out to be a crock of shit and they made us look really bad.
What assholes, man.
Well, it is what it is. They made us look bad. They didn't show all the evidence. They fudged the lie detector test and they did it in a way that's not even standard protocol. Like, for example, for a lie detector test, you would typically ask like 5 or 6 questions. They asked my dad 30 plus questions over and over again continuously for 4 hours until he got an inconclusive answer.
That's some MK type of like manipulative shit right there.
And they showed that on TV too. So anyway, so when I was, I guess I was 15 when that came out, my dad went on TV. The people at school mocked us, people in our family and our friends. A lot of people dropped us. They didn't want anything to do with us ever again. We're crazy trash. And what nobody expected was the people who did believe the story, it generated a lot of buzz. It really spread around the world. And Dad started getting hundreds and hundreds and eventually thousands of messages and friend requests on Facebook. And word started to spread through intelligence channels. And in 2009, so the documentary came out in 2008, right? The initial encounter happened in 2007. So now we fast forward to 2009. And a very nice guy by the name of Harold Povenmire. Okay, so it's summer break. I'm 15 at the time. I'm home from high school. I'm in my pajamas playing Xbox, or I think I was playing Fallout or something. And there's a ring at the door. I go and I answer the door, and it's this big, tall guy, Hal, with a badge on his chest that says NASA. He drove all the way from Cape Canaveral just to see us. And for the rest of his life, until he died 11 years later, he was constantly coming to us, doing write-ups on us, investigating us, constantly interrogating us, and not like in an asshole way. Just he was really wanted the facts, and he would be persistent about it. Very nice guy, though.
Was this for his own personal investigation? He was doing this for the organization. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
why was it a guy from NASA working for MUFON?
No, let me clarify. The Discovery Channel documentary associated with MUFON comes out. MUFON's gone. Occasionally they still contact us. We're talking, I should have clarified this. This is a year after the documentary came out. Mm-hmm. We get a knock on the door and it's NASA, mm-hmm. right? Independent of MUFON. This guy, Hal, was at the time the oldest living member of NASA. I'd seen pictures of him when he was a young guy in like his teenage years and in his 20s. In the same room as Werner von Braun. I mean, he was that senior of a NASA member.
Yeah, he was chilling with Jack Parsons, JPL.
Probably,
Elron,
man.
Probably,
Probably, yeah. But
Wow.
I do know that he was his mentor was Alan J. Hynek, who is the guy who started Project Blue Book, which started as it was like a NASA Air Force program to debunk UFOs. And they eventually decided we can't debunk them, they're real. And then it later somehow or another evolved into MUFON. But anyway, so we got NASA at our door. He stays in our life literally up until he dies 11 years later. And then round about 2012, so that's 5 years from our initial encounter in 2007, where we just have like thousands of people on Facebook hitting us up and writing messages and wanting to come out. I mean, at one point it got so serious, man, like we had people camping in our yard in tents. We have had hundreds of people come to our property and see lights in the sky and orbs and things like that. Very real phenomenon. I've had some encounters that would make your hair stand up. I can go into them too if you'd like, but
yeah, for sure.
Way later in the story.
It kind of reminds me of I don't know if you ever saw that the film interpretation of Childhoods in that Philip K. Dick book, where it's fucking super fascinating. But basically, like it's kind of crazy because the Philip K. Dick book came out, in the 50s, and this film it's like 3-parter. It's like an hour and a half each episode, and like I don't want to ruin the movies for you guys because it's really good. Like I highly recommend people watch it. But like basically like there's like, these alien overlords that are like chilling above the skyline, and they have contact with one guy, and that one guy, what happens later, is like people just start camping out in front of them and like being like, oh my God, you're amazing. And just basically almost, kind of treating them as like deities of sorts. And it's like, sorry, I had to sidetrack again, but I just completely got that flashbang in my head when you said that, because I'm like, Philip K. Dick is one of these writers where he was just like, he's writing this sci-fi and is getting like channeling and, and it's, I don't know any other stories where that's really been a case, besides maybe you guys like that I've actually ever heard of.
He didn't do 2001: A Space Odyssey, did he?
Philip K. Dick, I think, was working with Kubrick on that. Yeah.
Yeah, like the book, I mean.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
There is a book. Yeah.
They wrote like they got together in the think tank at the same time, and one guy wrote the script, the other guy wrote the novel, and like.
That's so cool, dude.
It's nuts.
I should back up a little bit. I didn't go over the like regression part of the investigation, but they did bring out a Harvard hypnotic regressionist. I don't know if that's the proper term, but whatever. And he was a student of John Mack at some point. And I don't know if you guys know John Mack, but he's like the world's most famous like UFO abductee hypnotherapist / regressionist or whatever. So this guy was very well trained. And so he came out and he did the regression, and my dad started to remember the 4 hours of missing time. And what happened was when he saw those the balls of fire, like the big, orange balls of light from the first day, one of them came up to him. It just, boom, it was just in his face. And it was this big tear-shaped, egg-shaped. He always describes it as kind of like a tear, like he draws it. And it had these rotating spikes of light all around it. And when he went up to it and he touched it, he even remembered the tip of the spikes was hexagonal shaped, like a hexagon. Mm-hmm. And when he touched it, all of a sudden he was in a dark room. And he's like on a table or a chair or something, and he's looking around, and there's a light on him, and these 3 or 4 entities that are 7 or 8 foot tall approach him, and they tell him that they're his guardians. And my dad's freaking out, like, where's my son? What's going on? Where's my son? And they're like, he's fine. We're watching him. And they take my dad and they show him all kinds of things like Egypt and the Sphinx and the pyramids. And they told him that they were the guardians of all life and all nature. And they work for creation to keep life in balance. And anyway, so when my dad came out after the documentary and started telling everybody that they were basically angels, he became kind of like a legend in the UFO world. And 2012 comes around. That's 5 years later. He has another extremely profound entity encounter. It's Easter night, and he hears a voice at 3 a.m. and it says, "Rise," and he gets up and he goes outside to the backyard and he sees these 3 entities, just like the ones he saw from the first night. And they walk him to the backyard, and they hand him this little thing. He always describes it as like the body of a chihuahua if it had no legs or no head or no tail. It's just like a fleshy body with spikes all over it. And it was explained to him. I'm gonna explain. Wow. So these entities explained to him that it was symbolic of the natural world of life that's supposed to live in harmony, but we have no idea what direction we're supposed to go. We're lost. We're confused. We have no head, no legs to go where we need to go. And this thing was really spiky. And when my dad would hold it, it would like gnash at him and it would hurt him. And he's like, "Oh, this thing sucks." You know, he wants to put it down. And I'm sorry if I keep like fidgeting. I have bad allergies. I just took my allergy pill, so you'll have to, I'm trying not to sniffle too much. But North Carolina, sorry, dudes.
You're good, man. You're good. You know, the human body is it's a
bitch.
many faceted Swiss Army knife. So
it's a bitch.
Yeah, dude. Got a WD-40 all the joints.
I have a sinus condition, so I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be obnoxious, but anyway. So
also really quick before we go too much further on, because I completely fucked up back there. I got my science fiction writers completely swish-washed. Philip K. Dick was Man in the High Castle and a couple other really famous books. Arthur C.
Clarke.
Okay, yep. Fucking that's who it was. Childhood's End, 2001: A Space Odyssey. You know. RCC, you know, or ACC is like 1 times it's 133 or whatever. So there's so much shit there, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, like, I made a mistake, as homie Romy.
I'm glad you told me that, man. I wanted to get that straight. So you're good, dude. But damn, where I was at so 2012. So he's holding this little thing, and the being say, "This is your burden. Don't lose it. Hold on to it." And it's gnashing at him, and he gets to this dog kennel in our backyard. We had a lot of hunting dogs, so we had this big L-shaped, actually it was a U-shaped kennel that held about 15 to 20 dogs. And anyway, so he gets to this kennel and he throws the thing inside. And when he turns around, there's this big bull. It's like it's this ghostly, etheric bull, and it charges my dad and it runs through him, and it knocks him over like a great wind or whatever, and he's on his back, and then he turns over, and when he gets on his knees to get up, he sees this woman. Actually, it's depicted here. This is an artistic rendition of it, and she's wearing a white dress, as you can see, like from her neck down to her feet. You can't tell because of the distance you are from the photo, but it was depicted in the image as well. He saw her dress. It sparkled like the stars in the sky, and she said, "You know why I'm here. This is your burden. You have to tell your story. Basically, I am the mother of all creation." She said her name was Hathor, like the Egyptian deity. And she said that the age of Aquarius is coming, and that when the red star Regulus aligns with the gaze of the Sphinx in the constellation Leo just before dawn, humankind would enter a new knowledge, a new awakening or understanding of consciousness. And she basically said, you got to go out, you got to tell your story. And if you don't, basically blood will be on your hands. And Dad bargained with her and said, as long as my family's okay and like you protect my family, I'll do whatever you need me to do. And she said, done. Whole family.
Oh my goodness gracious. That is fucking next level.
Well, it gets wilder, man. And anyway, so round about October, that's the next year. Let me get my story straight. So at some point that year, my dad starts having chats with people in the CIA. I'm kind of fuzzy on exactly when he made first contact there because I was in college at this time, 2012, 2013. All I know is I'm coming home and there's a CIA guy over kind of deal. Anyway, so I do know that 2013, October, this guy named Timothy Taylor comes to our house, and he's with the CIA, he's with NASA, he's with NRO, he's with Air Force Intelligence. He flashed all these badges at us, like Air Force. He flashed all those badges, essentially. which is why I knew who he was with. And he had this laptop that said for Bledsoe eyes only. And he briefed us on all this kind of stuff, like, this stuff shouldn't be happening to your family. This is not common. You guys are telling the truth. We'd prefer if you don't really speak about it too much publicly. Don't put it on the internet. What do? I blast it on the internet because ever since I was a child, the government's been fucking with my life. So this is kind of like my rebellious phase, right? So anyway, and ever since that point, we've had the CIA in our lives. And you fast forward to 2015, and we started getting a lot more involved with the CIA. And at one point, I found myself at a bar mitzvah in New York City for, I want to keep the kid's name anonymous. He has nothing to do with the CIA other than political connections. But the director of the CIA was there, as well as the director of the clandestine services of the CIA, who we went to the party with. And it's just the craziest thing. Like, we saw these lights in 2007, and next thing you know, we've got like DARPA, CIA, Air Force, NASA.
What kind of vibes do these parties bring, man? Like,
all of them bring different. I'm glad you asked. All of them bring different parties. Some of them are extremely nice, and they assure us that they want to help us get our story out. Some of them have said that, and then it's turned out they lied. And have tried to work one over on us and like manipulate us. Some of them have been extremely nice, and I feel like they've been genuine. And then some of them have literally told us that they could kill us, and basically God and the devil are the same entity, and they invited my dad to Bohemian Grove kind of thing. So totally weird. But essentially, to like breeze through 15 years of incredible UFO history, that is how I became Bledsoe Said So. So
I have a few questions. What does Hathor look like? Is she a white woman?
White woman, blonde hair, blue eyes. But I would say that she appears how she needs to appear to have the effect on the observer.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty common thread there. But then again, also the blonde hair, blue eyes, kind of traces back to this, the seeding civilization type of entity too, that like that always
Nordics.
Seems to be well, the Nordics, but also just like you hear about these like like tribes or what have you, like these cultures, let me say, is a better word than tribe in my opinion. But these cultures that will say, there's something about the blue eyes. Okay, there's something about the blue eyes, and
it's a
I don't know. Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
The Sumerians talk about it. The Anunnaki have blue eyes, and there's a lot of interesting like blue eye stuff when it comes to like these deities that came to help people.
Have you guys heard about like Queen Scotia? Princess Scotia, and so she was an Egyptian pharaoh's daughter, and there's like archaeological evidence that supports this. Obviously, how can we like prove something in the past? I mean, we can't exactly go there.
Scotland.
Right. So the evidence archaeologically shows that Queen or Princess Scotia went from Egypt to Scotland and settled there for a while. And that was like the ancient origins of Scotland, because I mean, it was just an island, right? Scotland is not landlocked, right? Am I wrong on that?
I think Scotland is and on the mainland, but Ireland is.
Maybe that's Ireland, yeah.
No, Scotland and Ireland are connected. It's part of the same thing.
I'm unsure.
I don't know. I've
with Great Britain.
But anyway, so the theory is that the Egyptians actually may have been the ones to initially settle Scotland, and there's other archaeological evidence that shows that the like the priestly class in the Egyptian pharaohs and such may have truthfully had red hair, which would explain the connection between Egypt and Scotland. And when Egyptian pharaohs and princesses and things like that are depicted with this really black hair, well, historically, factually, those were wigs to protect them from the harsh rays of the sun. A lot of times they shave their head bald and they throw on a wig.
I thought it was because of some disease that was going around that was creating baldness, and they wore the wigs.
Could have been that too, man.
There was two parties called the Whigs and the Tories that existed.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, that was during like the whole like I forget the name of the word, reconciliation, or that when the Christians were taking over that part of Europe, there was like that whole war with the Jacobites and trying to put the Stuart line back into its proper kingship, and that's what that whole battle was about. But yeah, Ireland is its own island, and Scotland is connected to the UK.
Well, when you do consider the concept that the Egyptians through Scotia, which is where the name Nova Scotia comes from, as well as
New Scotia land,
and think about Scotland, Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so if that's true, I mean, it would certainly make sense. You know, if this Egyptian priestly class woman came and settled this new place, and then next thing you know, you have all this Druidic lore popping up, which is very similar to the Egyptian mystery systems.
Yes, that's where I was gonna I was like, I'm wondering if it was stopping at Scotland, or if it went to these ties that we talk about with like ancient Druidic connections to Ireland I'm sorry, Egypt and everything, because that's super fascinating. And personally, until you guys brought it up, I had never heard of Princess Scotia, so that's definitely a note I'm taking now. I'm gonna look into that.
I love
it's
that
cool
line.
stuff.
Yeah,
cool stuff.
There's also a connection between Egypt and America too that we just talked to Rick Osman about too, with the stuff in Burrell's Cave. So, and I heard something else about the same story, but a little bit different. But I can't remember the actual names of the princesses and the pharaoh that were involved, but maybe another time. But sorry, go ahead, carry on, Ryan.
That's all good. I was just trying to kind of like summarize all the events in my life, basically that got me here to where I am today.
Yeah. What did these other entities look like that your father and brother had encounters with?
Well, there were two types that they mainly saw, not counting this one, not counting her.
Okay.
There was the 3 to 4 foot tall one that both my dad and my brother saw. And they looked like, I don't have a drawing of one. I have them on my social media profiles and everything. I don't know if you guys are you audio only?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I was going to say you could put it up in the video. I'd send you pictures, but scratch that. 3 to 4 foot tall. They have very round heads. They have these big round red eyes. And they blink like this. I know you guys can see me. I know the audience won't be able to, but we can describe it. They blink like this, like 1, 2, like a shutter. And their eyes would rotate, or I don't know the word at the moment. They would switch and they're blinking.
Wow.
For some reason, that always stuck out to my brother. It's just like he's sitting here for 2 hours staring them in the eyes, and that's how they're blinking. It just freaked him the hell out.
Eyes, man, it's inevitably something that's so memorable. If you have creepy eyes, if you have something significant going on with your eyes, like that stains you. That stains in your memory.
Well, I was gonna say my brother's episode of my show actually comes out next week, and it's pretty heavy. That'll be whatever a week from now is, May 11th, Wednesday. Yeah. So you might want to catch that one. You'll see how badly it affected him. And I mean, it was very traumatic. And
so they're about 3 or 4 feet tall. Are they like wide or skinny or
very skinny, very skinny. And I forgot to mention they run on all fours. So that freaked him the hell out. Yeah. Every time they ran off, they're running on all fours. And then my dad saw the other entities, which were he estimates they were 7 to 8 feet tall. And again, very skinny. They glow like the moon. They have a glow.
Blue? Is it like a bluish?
It's like a if you look at the moon, it's like a bluish, yellowish. He always describes they glow like the moon. Okay.
Yeah.
But that night in 2012, when he got closer to them, and basically they took him to see this lady, they took what looked like robes or this apparatus or something off. They derobed, and they no longer were these forms of like flesh. They were pure beings of light. They were these like angelic figures. And then he had an encounter in 2019. Oh, I forgot to mention this as well, that after 2012, we started seeing so many orbs up close, like ground level, not just in the sky anymore. Because since the initial encounter in 2007, we've seen thousands of lights in the sky, thousands of UFOs. We're the UFO family. We're literally the UFO family. Seen them. I honestly believe it's in the thousands. And then at some point, we started seeing them ground level, flying up close to us. We see some stuff in the house. We've had poltergeist activity. One time my dog's neck was slashed and it was squirting blood and there was nothing there. And my dad puts his hand on her neck and next thing you know, the cut's gone. That's a rabbit hole. Anyway, so yeah, we start seeing orbs and everything. And then 2019, my dad has another encounter. He sees this orb start to float across the pond because now my dad lives on a pond out in this 13-acre property in the woods. And this orb starts floating across the pond, and it starts, once it gets about middle way across the pond, it starts vibrating up and down in a straight line about 10 feet so fast that it looks like this continuous line of light. And it's changing colors. It's like fireworks. Like 1 second it's red, then it's orange, then it's yellow. It's just constantly changing colors in this bright flash, moving so fast up and down in this 10-foot imaginary line. And then that light gets so fast that my dad can see in the middle of the light, there's this full formed light entity. It was just this being. It had a head and arms and a leg. And it basically told him, we're in the tribulations now. And, you've had a lot of people try to change your story and try to convince you that what you saw isn't what you think you saw. You've done great. It really is all about God. This is the next phase. We're going to go tell it even more. And it was actually the next year I agreed to do the podcast, and we started getting crazy videos, crazy video evidence. We've had some entities caught on camera and things like that. I post them on Twitter and Instagram all the time. We had some CIA people and other institutions that I'm like technically not supposed to name have approached us and are trying to do some sort of exchange where they help us gather evidence and things like that. And it's just this whole big complicated thing when the government's involved. And anyway, yeah, so it's been crazy ever since 2007.
That's nuts, man. Let me ask you this question too, or not really a question, but I kind of want to like help people paint a picture of this. We were talking about earlier when your dad had that encounter with the white buffalo or the white bull in the forest before it morphed into the woman, right? Did I heard that right? It was a bull?
It was a bull, but I see where you're going with that. Yeah.
Okay, so there's this old indigenous
the white buffalo calf woman.
The white buffalo calf woman. Yeah, exactly. And like there's stories about it all over. And if you see, the snow melt into the shape of a white buffalo, that the time of change or the time of awakening is happening, and these new children will start to be born that will have like and live in spirits. And that story correlates across the board. Super fascinating, man. Like I'm really glad you're here actually, and that this is lined up the way that it has, because naturally we're going to do this month of missing in May. And I hit a buddy to do some booking for us, to try to outreach and get some other guests. And I personally, dude, have been like off and on the belief of understanding of entities, because it's like we talk so much even about the cosmology and what the fuck is the shape of the earth, right? And that would influence what space is in our conception of that. So it's just like, I'm in and out of like, what do I think is going on? Like, do I believe anything? And it's hard to believe anything. So, but I've had experiences but I've had mainly like ghost experiences and those types.
It's all connected. It's, if you don't mind, I'll tell you what I've learned through my lifetime of seeing thousands of paranormal phenomena, like it to the point to where I'll have friends over and they'll say things with me and they're freaking the fuck out and they don't know how to react, and I'm just calm. Like it just doesn't even faze me really anymore. What I've learned is that intrinsically we are all eternal beings who originally come from the one true consciousness. That all these religions that bullshit us today, they have their own idea of a God. Well, there's truly only one God, and that one God is everything that ever existed. It's consciousness. And you're a piece of that, and you're a piece of that, and I'm a piece of that, and everything is a piece of that. And as you're going through life, or I should say through many lives, you're incarnating over and over again until you slowly, through lifetimes, remember more and more of yourself as being a part of that original consciousness. And for those spirits that remember that, and they don't need to incarnate in this shitty little dense physical reality anymore that like compresses your spirit into this little robotic biological form that needs to like breathe to function and stupid shit like that doesn't really make sense from a cosmic perspective. You might look like a being of light that when you cross the veil, these people in these shitty little flesh suits would say, oh my God, it's a God, it's an angel, it's a being. But we're all on that track to eventually be that after lifetimes and lifetimes. And we're all evolving right back up to where we came from. And that's just the ancient Egyptian truth. The beings identified themselves to my dad as having to do with the pyramids. That's actually why, if you see right here, I have a depiction. I know the audience won't see it, but I have a depiction of a UFO over a pyramid. And if you look at my podcast sigil, you might not see it because of the purple light. You see the pyramid?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
They took my dad to the pyramids. And then if you look at my podcast symbol, it's a UFO inside of a pyramid. And what I'm trying to subconsciously implant into people's minds is that the UFO phenomenon is inherently and intrinsically married to consciousness and spiritual phenomenon. They're one and the same. Ghosts, UFOs, all that paranormal shit, it's all one field. And believe it or not, I was actually told that by the head of the spy program for the American Central Intelligence Agency. They know in these compartmentalized programs that tries to study UFOs and everything, they know that it's all the same thing. They know that UFOs are spirits and they're these higher beings and all that fancy stuff. So entities are definitely real. I've seen them. I've actually physically been touched by one in my room. It touched me right on my ribs, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, what the hell? And it just blinked out. It disappeared. And they can do all kinds of crazy shit, man. They can walk through your wall. They can appear in your dreams. They can do whatever they want because this reality is just a bunch of these dense atomic and molecular vibrations that they aren't shackled by anymore because they've evolved past that, you know?
Mm-hmm. So do you think, so they're not coming from other planets? They're interdimensional or different density, different frequency even maybe?
Correct. And in my experience.
And so do you think because they took them to the pyramids and they built the pyramids that they built them physically or they built them spiritually?
I don't know that they built them. They never indicated that to us. I don't know the truth about the pyramids other than in ancient times, especially in the times of like Thutmose III, they were initiatory centers where they would have these elaborate initiations.
Let's talk about these, these shitty little flesh suits, which, hey man, like, I'm not going to lie. Like I totally get down with that because, when you close your eyes and you tap into your consciousness, you're able to just really expand more than you can expand, when your eyes are open and you're here and now, supposedly, right? Because, obviously through societal engineering, we've been kind of like, watered down and dwindled down from our true like potential, right? In my opinion. So let's talk about our history. Let's talk about, the Egyptian times, like, if we didn't get outside help and we as, and I say we as, the collective consciousness of existence, whatever this is, may have built it with our powers, with our senses and abilities. And I'm wondering what your opinion is on, having these experiences, what your opinion is on those types of like paranormal powers, if you will, like this, like how powerful and potentially powerful do you think the human body is? Because we know how powerful the human consciousness is and the human creativity is, but what about the full potential of the human body?
And you might think this is some old country bullshit, but I'm telling you, man, like my ancestors were some strong fucking dudes. I come from a long line of carpenters, and I'm the first of my generation and my other brother who broke from that, and like we went and got educated and got other careers and things like that. But most people in my family were always carpenters and farmers and things like that. And let me tell you, my great grandpa back in the early 1900s, he was so strong from working the fields all day and building houses and just constantly working and working and working. Shit you not, man, the community would come around. And he was a heavy drinker too, not a good kind either, but you know, it is what it is. And he would get liquor in him, and he would smoke a cigarette in one hand, and he would hold his hand out in the other hand. And back in the day, the cars were metal. You know how they're like plastic now, a type of plastic, so they crunch when they crash. But back then they were metal. And he would put his hand on this car, and he would challenge the community to spin the tires in the dirt. Who can crush them against the wall? And nobody could do it. He could just hold that car still with one hand while he's showing off smoking a cigarette. His son, my grandfather. Now, I know these stories are true because my dad grew up with him and saw a lot of this. And even my dad built his first house at 13 years old. He was a strong motherfucker, too. Like, when I was a little kid, I would watch Dragon Ball Z on the TV. It's my favorite show of all time. I would watch it religiously as a kid. And I had it on the TV one day, and my dad wanted to be a smart ass and show off and show me he was cooler than Goku. He got down right in front of me, and he started doing handstand push-ups with his feet on the wall. And he could do 50 of them in a minute. And my grandfather was so fucking strong. He could pick up a car engine 400 or 500 pounds, or he could pick up a Volkswagen. He actually did that when he was in school. He picked up a Volkswagen and put it on a curb just to prank a teacher who was being really hateful to him. And I say that not just to brag on my family, but to say that, like, I personally have seen people and heard of people in my family do things that should not be possible. And I think society as a whole is a lot weaker because everything's prepackaged. Like, the way it was explained to me, back in the day, 100 years ago, when you had concrete in a bag, that bag was probably 100 or 200 pounds, or like feed or something like that. Now they sell them in like 40 or 50 pound bags. Like, naturally over time, men are getting weaker because the things that we have to do are being taken away by manufacturing and machinery, and we don't even understand our potential as a human species, I believe. You know, there's the old-time strongmen, like, let me think of this guy's name. He was a Jewish guy. He's like the strongest guy that ever lived. His name is, I think it's the Great Samson. The mighty Samson or something like that.
I mean, that's definitely a story
from the Bible.
The Bible, but not the Bible guy. He was like a stage strong man who gave himself that name because of the Bible.
Oh, I think I can't, like, photos. They have photos of this man, right?
Yeah, he was alive. There was the Great Samson, and there was another guy. I can't remember his name, but if you look him up, it's so strong, man. They could lift 1,000 pounds with their finger. And they could, this one guy, it's killing me, I can't remember his name, but the very short, he was a Jewish guy. And I say that because it's a part of his story. He was very proud of that. And he actually believed in Jewish mysticism, and he would meditate on, like, certain Jewish mystical beliefs, and he believed it was his source of strength. That's why I keep repeating the Jewish thing. But anyway, he could tie an airplane to his hair, and the airplane couldn't take off the runway. He could just sit there with his arms crossed with his head down. I've seen pictures of it. And you know, the humans are capable of incredible things. We just don't believe it anymore, you know? I'm going to plug my laptop in real quick. Oh, yeah, the power of belief will take you a long way.
That's just kind of like this, you know, we're touching around it. We're kind of dancing around it a little bit. There's a lot. I mean, there's obviously a lot to dig into with this, but, you know, like, what is better? I mean, obviously it'd be best to have great strength, but also a great mind and a great connection to spirit and a great connection to consciousness. But also at the same time, the ability to, maybe be so strong that you could, or fast that you could like rip into another dimension or rip into a portal, right? But like, I'm wondering if this, and let's get into this too with these these paranormal connections with your family, like the evolution of us, or the de-evolution as some people call it. Are we have we been naturally going in the direction that we were always going to go? And by that I mean, we were at a heightened part of civilization, deluge happens or what have you, something happens, and then we get to another point in strength in society where men are strong and there is this connection with spirit, but now we're at a point where technologically we're advancing, which I use quotations here, people, with my fingers, because looking at ancient technology, which we do on this show, we obviously know that there was a bigger connection to like some sort of ethereal physics. And this is kind of a big question that I'm having a hard time really trying to formulate right now, but have we been on the right path with kind of like creating this quantum physics world, this quantum computing world that will be our, like, we're getting weaker, but we're also getting a bigger connection to the quantum side of things and understanding the, are you familiar with Project Gateway?
Is that like the takes, like the binaural beats, or am I getting it confused?
It's like, I think it is tied to that a little bit.
Like the Monroe Institute type stuff?
Yes. Yeah. Where the astral projection.
Yeah. The CIA actually put me onto that stuff. I've totally forgot to mention this, but we got pretty heavily involved and still are involved with the people that the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats is based on, actually, which is about like remote viewing and astral projection and stuff. So
okay, that's kind of what I'm getting at too here. It's like, are we in a degradation, and are we being forced into it? Like, is there a battle between, because you have a very interesting connection with obviously some high up government facilities, which is, I mean, obviously in our realm, it's like, oh my God, this guy's, talked to somebody in the CIA that's like, relatively suspect, but also.
Yeah, but that's why I'm upfront about it and honest about it too.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to my show, I straight up, like, I don't trust these people. I give them quite a hammering, and it is what it is.
Well, does that scare you? Does that make you feel any type of way? Like, do you feel have you ever received, a threat or anything that says like, hey,
we've received death threats. Yeah. But when it stopped scaring me is when I came out on my show, and I've never looked back.
Fuck it, man. Yeah.
Full
steam ahead.
Yeah. Full steam ahead. That's right. This is my life. And like these, and I'm gonna be honest with you, man, like we have literally had death threats with people associated with the CIA. I say associated, it's complicated. The clandestine world is a lot different than it is on TV,
Ain't that the truth?
And anyway, so, we've had death threats and things, and I've had some messages on my social media accounts and even public messages, people harassing me, and I see the accounts and I know that they're the people that my dad was just on the phone with who are associated with the CIA. And like, some of them are good, some of them are bad. Maybe it's good cop, maybe it's bad cop. I don't know. But what I do know is that my show, it actually scares the shit out of them, because they're like, what's he going to say next? Because we've had private conversations with him, and, that's by design. So.
Well, so, like, is he going to leak? Is he going to blow? So fuck yeah, man. Hey,
I have documents.
I support that, dude. I'm going to keep a close eye on that. That's awesome. And another reason why I'm glad to have you here, and that Mark hooked us up. So shout out,
Mark.
Shout out, homie. But yeah, so do you think there is this battle going on? Is there,
spiritual war?
Yeah, is there spiritual war going on within our government? Like what the fuck do we have to look forward to? Like, who's got our back and who are we up against?
The entities, in my experience and my understanding, the entities are for the people. You see, and just in a second, I'm going to have to quickly bounce and find a charger because I have 2 Macs, and for some reason this one's not working. I'm on 10%, so I'm going to make this quick. I'm not leaving. I got to run and grab a charger, so I do apologize about that. But
no worries.
But to answer your question, the entities are for the people. There's a reason that the only evidence you ever see from the government is a little fucking blip on a radar that's not really worth much. Then, they're saying that there's really aliens, but really it's just it's a dot on a screen. And then the whole world goes nuts. The government's telling us the truth. They're finally doing it. Well, I've met them. I've actually met them. I've actually met the people responsible for that video, if you know what I'm talking about, the Nimitz video that went all over the news. Yeah, they're very good friends of mine. That's Tom DeLonge and the director of the spy program. And I'm not
Wait, you're homies with Tom DeLonge?
My dad is, not me. I've met the other guy, the director of the spy program.
First concert I ever saw was Tom DeLonge when I was in 6th grade.
That's crazy, dude.
Huge Blink fan, man. Like that guy influenced me when I was younger. Go get your charger.
Actually, my wife just brought it to me.
What a sweetheart.
Yeah, I texted her, SOS, please. and I'm not like bad mouthing Tom and Jim. I'm just saying, like, I've met these people responsible for the like these kinds of videos and this evidence and stuff. And I'm telling you, they all know that this is a very spiritual thing. They know that the entities are very real. Yet the media institutions are still putting out all this like cattle probing and like cattle mutilation and all this shit that I'm not even convinced that really happened.
So that leads me into like another question. I mean, like I don't even know. I'm just going to say it just because, you know, hey, we're already here. We're already in the thick of it. You know, if there's any way that you can help me get in contact with Tom DeLonge, that would be a childhood creamy wet dream.
Honestly, man, I would if I could. I've actually tried myself.
Dan is so pissed. Look at him. Sorry. I didn't mean to construe that. No, I was just mainly joking. That's just because, like, I mean, like, I grew up watching those guys, and then you see this crazy transition. Like, I remember that song "Aliens Exist."
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I remember that song. Like, I grew up like I'm talking fanatic. When I was in 4th grade, I was a Blink-182 fanatic. Like,
wow.
It was everything. I love Blink. I love skating. I love punk. I love Atticus. That was their clothing brand. And then you see this transition to where, you know, he makes Angels and Airwaves. Angels and Airwaves. Okay. A&A, right? Like that name alone is kind of like being like that picture right behind you.
Have you seen the Masonic symbolism on the artwork?
No, because I wasn't like when I was listening to that shit, like I haven't even jumped back into that because honestly, dude, like I thought and I need help convincing that the alien thing is a complete fraudulent because I'm just so skeptical of the government. I'm so incredibly skeptical of the government. So I'm like, once I saw that they were leaking out alien information, I was like, this shit has to be fraudulent, you know, because
that's what my whole show is about. That's what my whole show is about. It's getting out ahead of them so that people can have a window into the reality of UFO and entity experiences. And they could choose to go like watch the box in their room that they bought at Walmart that conveniently flashes pictures of the news and the media and stuff. Yeah, that's my dad with Tom.
Nice.
And the other guy is Lou Elizondo, who is the former Pentagon director of ATIP, which was like their UFO flight tracking program. And like all of the highest levels of intelligence communities and ufology, they're all zeroed in on my fucking family, dude. And sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes I love it. And then sometimes I'm just so sick of it. And it's like, I just wish I could have a normal life, but it is what it is.
It's like, give me some money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we don't say that. That's. I'm
just kidding.
they've offered, you know, people have offered and things like that, and like Tom did offer to fully fund a Hollywood blockbuster film about my dad, and my dad turned it down because he would have had to talk about reptilians and dark shit, and my dad doesn't think that it's right to, so to speak, sell his soul to talk about things that are not true in his experience, you know.
Your dad is awesome. I'm just gonna say it. Like I listened to his Higher Side chats with Greg, and Greg said it. He was like, you know, I know you're super selective. Like you don't want to just, you don't get on shows all the time, and you know, and that's respectable, man, because you know you can't. I think would you say that that's a reason why they have contact with your families, because they kind of know that there's like a good spirit attached to that, and that they won't take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think
that's cool.
Like, this is going to sound crazy as hell, but whatever. Like, I don't care. That guy Hal, who came to our house in 2009, one of the things he has told us for years, and he did pass away in 2019, so he's dead now, rest in peace. But
respect.
He used to say this all the time, that and look, if anyone's lying here, it's Hal. You know, I didn't make this up. He really said this. Whether it's true or not, I don't know for sure, but he really said it. I'm just passing what he said. This is going to sound like some pretty crazy shit, but whatever. He said that NASA chose my family, or the government or whatever chose my family to in the future, when humanity is ready, to be the poster child of disclosure. And yeah, I mean, I can't deny that is a little weird, considering we're the ones who every week my dad is on the phone with people in certain government institutions. And I can tell you this, that there have been government officials at our property who have had profound entity encounters. And like, I'm a huge fan of Tinfoil Hat, and like, I love Mark's show and Greg's show, and huge shout out to Isaac Weishaupt. I think he has one of the best conspiracy shows out there. I love that kind of vibe. Like, I'm all about exposing the government. On my show, I've literally called them the cocaine import agency. You know what I mean? But
oh yeah,
if we're getting down to brass tacks and we're talking about like the truth from our experience, I can honestly tell you that not everybody in these organizations is evil just because they're in these organizations. And like, it's not all black and white. And I have met some people in these institutions, I should say CIA or whatever, who have been really kind, truthfully, really kind and really nice, and have had like really positive things to say to us, and have even like told people in our family, like, this man is telling the truth and you mocked him all these years, kind of thing. Like, you know, kind of vindicated us to certain people. And like, I don't think they're all bad. I don't think that everybody in the CIA, everybody in the government, they're not all bad. It's an entity. It's this big egregore, right? And like, maybe the prime directive of it is bad, but I'm holding out for the hope and the faith that there are players who are trying to play the game to get some good stuff to happen. And that's just my take. I could be totally wrong. I'm just laying down how I feel about it. And like, people think I'm like an Illuminati shill and stuff like that, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Earlier you're talking about when Regulus is in Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know when that is supposed to happen?
So the entity never gave a date, but our friend who I keep referencing, Hal, who was with NASA, he ran it through a simulator, like a stellarium or whatever they use to get astrological, you know what I mean?
Alignments,
and the year he got was 2026.
Oh, wow. That's so. I also wanted to say Hal is the computer from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yep.
Which is hilarious. This guy from NASA is named Hal, and he's got this connection. That's, I mean, come on. That's amazing. But let's
find you a picture here, by the way. I'm not.
Let's talk. No, you're good. You're good, brother. I mean, we're going deep, man. I love this shit. This is amazing. And hey, you know, it's going to be a bonus-ode, not Ancient America, because it is totally our Missing in May, you know, one and done for Missing in May, man. We can wipe our hands with it after this one. But so let's talk about your viewpoints of cosmology. I mean, like, you know, after having these experiences, you said you don't think they come from, you know, millions of miles away. What is your viewpoint on cosmology? And then maybe we can segue into the moon.
Sure. I'm going to send you a photo right now, because I've been searching for this for like 10 minutes, and I really think you should see it because you're a super fan. Just found it. Take a look at this photo real quick, and feel free. I don't have, is it Dan or Darren? I'm so bad with names short term. Dan, feel free to send it to Dan if because I don't have his number yet.
What am I looking at here?
That is, it's a zoomed in, brightened up, cropped, entity photo that was actually taken on my property that Tom DeLonge shared and got credit for.
And he just says real pic. That's his only thing in the description.
Didn't give us credit.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll send you the original. I
What
wanted
a cool
you to see
guy. Blink 182 is awesome.
Hey. Okay.
He is a nice guy. He is a very nice guy.
Okay.
Anyway, so your question, my take on cosmology, I touched on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I believe, like I said, there's one true spiritual reality. Actually, I'll just speak from memory. So the beings told my dad that there's this eternal realm. They call it the eternal world, and it's where souls go. When you leave this life, you go to the eternal world. You become like they are. Your soul might, to someone with a physical body, with eyeballs, with rods and cones, with optic nerves that are connected to the pineal gland that are like transmitting this light data, you might see a higher spiritual or higher consciousness entity appear to you as light. It's not physical. It's beyond the physical. You might see a flash of it and it might look like light, but in reality, it's something. It's an energy that we don't fully know or understand. But when you die from this life, I do know, because of these entities telling us, that you go into this world, you go into this eternal world. To us, it looks like an orb. When you see a spirit, I've seen orbs. I've seen many of them. Some of the pictures we have, they have faces on them. It'll blow your fucking mind. They've got clear faces on them. It's the weirdest thing. And I believe that the physical reality that we live in, this little material 3D, you can call it a simulation, you can call it a matrix. I don't care about the verbal kung fu. All I care about is the concept. I think people get way too caught up in the semantics of this word versus that word. They're looking at one tree when they should look at the whole forest. And the forest is, we are in a reality that is not the real reality. The real reality is the eternal reality from which this current one is manifested. We are emanating from this eternal reality. And you go through these little, like you're this eternal spirit and you might want to go and experience love. So you jump into a life and you experience love. Or maybe you don't know what it's like because you're a perfect being in another realm. You don't know what it's like to experience sadness. So you come into this life and you live a sad fucking life. And like, it sucks while you're here, but it's over in a flash. And then you're back to eternity, And that's my take on cosmology. Life is eternal.
So you're a flat earther? No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly, man, I'm a manifester. Like I just believe.
Yes.
I believe this reality is just a little mirror image of the higher reality. And personally, I love the flat Earth conversation. I don't believe in flat Earth, but I'm not married to the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like
Word. Yeah.
If we're quoting Eddie Bravo, yeah.
Hell yeah. No, am I
getting flicked off? Am I not supposed to?
Roman is.
Dan is such a fucking hater, dude. Dan is such a hater on the flat Earth, man.
Well, I'm not a flat earther. I just love the conversation because it's woo woo. It's stimulating to engage in a conversation that is just so out there because my life is out there. But I'm not a flat earther. Like, I don't believe in flat Earth. I personally believe that the Earth is much bigger than they let on.
Oh, there we go. That's my dude. We were on the same brainwave on that, dude. Like, I love the flat Earth talk. It's fascinating to me because it blows my mind of everything I've ever been taught. And that's what I love. I love to be blown away from things that I think hold me to the mainframe. Yo, wipe my fucking slate clean. Like, I don't know shit. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me that I'm fucking nothing and a nobody and everything at the same fucking time. Yeah. But then again, I'm like, yo, it's definitely not a fucking piece of paper. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's definitely not an orange. So like, what are we talking about here? And Dan, you were going to say something, sir.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you think like maybe the astral realm, all the stars are like is the spirit realm?
Wow, that's a super deep question. The way I think about these celestial bodies is that they are conscious entities, like the sun might, in some really metaphorical, spiritual mumbo jumbo type of verbiage, could be our father. And then the earth could be our mother. And then, like, for thousands of years, you have these religions forming where you have Mother Earth and you have these solar entities and Ra and Horus and what's the Roman one called? Sol Invictus and all this stuff. And Jesus has a halo on his head. But in reality, when you think about it, didn't Carl Sagan tell us that we were all made of star stuff?
Yeah.
And like the sun is sufficiently hot to create the perfect conditions for carbon-based life in our solar system. So, like, in a way, the rays and the light and the heat of the sun is kind of penetrating the womb of the earth, which is then springing forth life. So, like, maybe there's a lot more mystery to this pagan shit that we all scoff at. You know what I mean? I'm not a pagan. I don't believe, like, oh, this tree's a god, that tree's a god. I believe that consciousness is infinite and it exists in everything. Everything is living. The rocks are living. The trees are living. Anything that manifests in this realm, right? And I believe the celestial bodies are no different. And I think that they are extremely highly evolved conscious entities that we just don't understand yet, but they're clearly intelligent.
Do you think there's purpose within them for us? Like, do you think, because we had a really great guest on, if you ever get a chance, you just look for some stuff to listen to, go check out our Wahid Hassan episode. And I bring this one up a lot because I love it. I love this ideology that, we're on a spiritual sojourn, right? And we go through these different planes. We go through these different levels of consciousness and these planets, and we serve some purpose and we serve time of understanding in each planet to really just kind of gain cosmic knowledge. And Earth is like this melting pot of all of those things. And I mean, that's
the crossing place.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it's like, okay, hey, like, let's go out. Let's go travel. Let's get this information. Let's get enlightened. Let's go. And then let's go back to Earth and, kind of bring it all back together, have a little think tank before we head out again,
When you think about it from that perspective, when you think of Earth as, and I didn't make this up, this is actually ancient knowledge from Egypt and beyond, but when you understand that Earth is the crossing place between spirit and matter, meaning you come and you live this life, you're not fully matter, but you're not fully spirit. You're kind of like a hybrid between the two. Like, you have these conscious faculties that's animating this physical body and driving it to bumble around this 3D world. But, you experience everything through the five senses, yet you have this mind that you can contemplate everything you experience as well. Like, it's spiritual, it's physical. Kind of makes you think about why the cross is the most famous esoteric symbol of all time. And then it brings up the question, did it really start with Jesus, or maybe it was much older and all the secret societies have known this, and then you get into a really deep conversation about, being initiated into the mystery traditions and stuff like that. But
cool. Yeah, I have a theory on the cross. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
That's the stuff I like talking about, is that the mystery stuff. With religion and stuff, and how it pertains to Jesus and the cross and whatnot. I listened to your Atlantis episode, and you said some very interesting things in there of how Jesus may be connected with, like, Hermes Trismegistus. Can you go into that a little bit? Because I've said it quite a few times, but nobody seems to reciprocate that. But I believe
you say
that
nobody, you're not grouping me in that, because we've had this conversation.
Yeah, be quiet for a second, because I think that Yahweh was Marduk, and Marduk had a son named Nabu, and that's who I believe that Jesus was. And
Star Wars.
Nabu was also pretty much, he was like the Sumerian or Babylonian Hermes. So there's that connection there, and the planet Nibiru sounds a lot like Nabu, and I'm working on this whole connection to try to explain this, because a lot of people, they either say, like, Jesus is all good and all these other pagan deities are all evil, but Jesus is the only good one. But it seems so weird to me that Jesus would be the only good. Where did he come from then?
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. I think about this all the time because I was raised very devout Christian. I'm talking Pentecostal. You guys familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard of the people that like handle snakes and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Pentecostal. My church didn't handle
idea.
snakes.
That sounds
Oh
amazing.
yeah. Well, it's not. It's terrifying. My church didn't handle snakes. You know, contrary to what people think, not all churches in the South do that. It's very like remote thing in the mountains. It's not super common, but it does happen. And I grew up in that kind of church, like shouting and screaming and praising, and you know, your whole life is church, and you got to wear like, you know, men are supposed to wear long pants and cover up, and women are supposed to wear skirts all the time. And I'm not disrespecting, I'm just providing an example of how I was raised in the church. So I'm in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking like, what's the connection between Jesus and the mystery schools? Because my whole life up until I was in my 20s was Jesus, right? Well, then you take into account when I was 13, I saw all these aliens and shit. And, you know, next thing you know, I don't really care to believe what anybody tells me to anymore. I want to figure it out. So what I figured out, especially getting into the mystery traditions, like I'm really interested in the Rosicrucians. I feel like they're no bullshit. It's just like you come to us if you want to learn. You don't have to go through all the fraternity crap. If you want to, that's great. That's an option for you. And then you have other schools. I don't have much experience with Freemasonry. I like studying them theoretically. I am not a Freemason. I'm not in their lodges. I don't know what goes on in their lodges other than what I've seen on the internet. However, I will say my vibe about Freemasonry is it's not the same. It's more like a catch-all, like join our group and we're going to take you through these levels of initiation, and you're not really going to get the good stuff until much later. Don't give a shit about that. But when you really dive into the ancient mystical traditions, just flatly right in front of you, the facts and the historical evidence, it seems to me that there have been many sages that walked the earth since the times of Atlantis, starting probably with the myth of Hermes Trismegistus. I think that's the most important historical figure that 90% of the world doesn't know about. And then you have Hermes, and then you have others like Zoroaster, very benevolent figure from Iran. Back then it was called Persia. And then when you actually look at the facts, when you look at the history, this man, Zoroaster, in 1000 BC, predicted that the savior of the world would be born and he would be signaled in the sky by a star in the east. He actually said that. You can look it up. And then you fast forward to 1,000 years later and you see in the Bible where I think it's the book of Matthew, when the three wise men are bringing like gifts to Jesus, they're actually the Magi. They're Zoroastrian priests. And they're the ones that told the king, if the story is even historically accurate, they're the one that told the king, oh shit, there's the star. The Seoshant is here, which was their word for savior, you know? So there's a lot of historical evidence around the mystery of Jesus. And I personally believe that Jesus was the recent incarnation of the Hermes Trismegistus sage figure. I think Jesus was the Christ, but not in the literal way that we're taught in church. I don't think he was born of a virgin and he like died and went to hell for 3 days and all that paganized Roman stuff. And I don't mean to be offensive to anybody who does believe that. I think it's okay to believe that. I believe it a little different. I believe that Jesus was traveling through Egypt and India and Greece and Persia, mastering the mystery traditions of the time, like it's suggested by Edgar Cayce and other mystery schools like Rosicrucians and stuff, synthesized the mystery religions, brought them back to Israel, started teaching it to the people, and then they killed his ass because he was waking people up. I don't think he was the only one. I think Buddha is a great example of a Christ-like being in the East, in the Far East, you know? And I don't know if I really answered your question, but.
that you win. I mean, it wasn't my question, but I got a lot of, that's beautiful ties. Trismegistus. You guys hear like the word, and you say it like almost like I hear majestus, like almost like the word majesty or
majestus. It means thrice greatest. He's a mythological amalgamation of Thoth, Mercury, and Hermes, which are the Greek, Egyptian, and Roman deities.
What similarities do you see between him and Jesus, though? Like, what are the other similarities?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like a sage figure who goes out into the public and disseminates knowledge that has the potential to awaken people spiritually and psychically and lead people towards understanding of higher consciousness. It's the way I would describe it is the archetype. It's the archetype of the sage. I believe that archetypes play a very important role when we're talking about forces of nature. I mean, this is a manifested little simulation world we live in. We got to understand the real world is eternal. It's formless. It's pure spirit. It's light. It's more metaphorical than literal. You know what I mean? And like the lower down into these realities you go, the more dense it is with forms. The Greeks were really big on this shit, like the theory of forms and stuff like that. And then you really dive deep into Pythagoras and you start to understand that the Egyptians were really talking about sacred geometry. And then when you really connect the dots, you see the Freemason symbol. What is it? It's tools to draw geometry. Yeah, it's a square and a compass, which is a tool to draw a circle.
Yeah.
And then when you go ahead.
No, please keep going. You're amazing. I love you.
I feel it, man. I love you guys too. I really would like to eventually have you on our show if you're up for that. I think you guys are the perfect vibe. Anyway, so when you get into the sacred geometry thing and you study the ancients like Pythagoras and where he learned that, which was from the Egyptian mystery systems, you realize that consciousness is so intelligent that this reality manifests in a series of repeating geometric forms. That's just what it is. And archetypal expressions of nature are very important. I think that there are actual manifestations of archetypes that pop up through reality. It's like a code. It's like a matrix, right? And I think Jesus is the most recent example of the archetype of the shepherd or the sage or the savior or the king or whatever, the person whose soul may have taken on the purpose to wake up thousands of others or millions or whatever. And
I get this, and my kind of vibe, just to touch on the Jesus Hermes connection and the Emerald tablets. He's having direct contact and information with God. So, Jesus is this son of God, figure, and Hermes is like just straight talking to God, and God's just telling him, he's just like, hey, stream of consciousness, basically, like, and he's asking him, he's like, Father, then why, this? And so there's that direct connection between Hermes and God and Jesus and God. And Jesus, to me, I kind of have this, and talking about Pythagoras and the goodness of angles and math and the flow, and I'm working on this thought piece. I'd like for you to give me your 2 cents on it and what you think of this. And it's why it was really mind blowing me today down in St. Augustine when I've made a lot of like really beautiful connections and was just like reaffirmed on like, okay, you're on the right path of, keep going down the shit. All that shit. And it's like in the atmosphere that we live, that's where the doors of the dimensions are, right? That's where the doors of the dimensions are. They are within the atmosphere. It's everything, right? You're grabbing it all the time. All of our electricity is floating through the atmosphere. Everything, all
Tesla proved that. That's a fact.
Exactly. Oh, I have that in my notes. Let me just bring that up real quick. Okay, so when I was listening to your pops talk about the experiences and groupings, the numbers were significant generally, and maybe you could touch on this too. 3s most commonly, but he also said there were 6 and sometimes 9. And obviously, what do we know about Tesla's interactions with entities that I
did some gematria on the date. It was 1/8/2007, so that's 9 and 9.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
18, which is 9 again.
Nice.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's Pythagorean numerology right there. Yeah.
Beautiful. And so there we go, right? There we go with the 3, 6, and the 9. And 9 is 3 and 3, you know, so
Yeah.
where does this tie in? Was that Tesla's like key to like basically kind of like hint hint, wink wink, nudge nudge?
I think so, man. I think so. I think there is something to the numbers 3, 6, and 9, and like you can look into Tesla's vortex math and stuff like that. But to take it a step further, I forgot to mention this earlier, and this has totally been depicted since the documentary in 2008. Like there's timestamps on the documentary. Back then, when my dad had his encounter, he told Mufon the entities had a triangle on their chest. And like, if you look at the CGI renditions that Mufon even did back then, they made sure to include that based on my dad's detail. They had a triangle on their chest.
Triangle on my chest right there, man.
No way, dude. That's awesome. That's a sick tat.
Thanks, man.
I can't even see it.
Oh,
there
sure.
it is.
I'll show you guys here. Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. The beings had a triangle on their chest, and like you might think this is weird.
Oh yeah,
that looks like native, or like it looks Greek almost.
Sigil style. Tori Louie, check her out on Instagram.
Okay, cool. My dad, like I said, he said they had the triangle on their chest, and some of these CIA people started talking to us about sacred geometry, and like this one guy, Timothy Taylor. I know y'all probably don't know who he is, but he's a heavy player in the UFO world. He came to my dad one time, and he had the Ouroboros on a shirt. You know the Ouroboros, like
we know.
serpent eating its tail. Keep in mind, my dad and I came from a Christian background, and then we start seeing entities. My whole family starts seeing entities, and they identify themselves with these Egyptian names, and we're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And by the way, didn't mention this earlier, the lady entity that I talked about, she told my father that the hidden one is Amun-Ra. So for 10 years, I've been studying Amun-Ra, trying to figure that shit out. And that led me to all this Mystery Society stuff.
Amen means hidden. So Ra, and Ra is the sun, so the hidden sun. So Amun-Ra would be the hidden sun or the dark sun or whatever. Yeah.
Nice.
The sun, yeah, like the sun behind the sun. Or the way I understand it is the sun that animates the spiritual world, but also the sun that animates the physical world.
Also, Enki was the dark sun. He's like the Lucifer figure, and he's the one that broke away from God. So he is the dark sun, and he went to he's the one that ruled Africa and the Abzu. So you could kind of call him the ruler of the dark ones in that sense. If you go back to the Sumerians, he had a whole bunch of people that were his like slave class. It's hard to say if they were his slave class, but according to Sitchin, they built the pyramids and they did the mining for the Anunnaki to get gold and whatnot. But
that's beautiful. Okay, this is tying into kind of what I was saying before I segued into the Tesla stuff that just kind of is blowing my fucking mind right now. This hidden sun, which and what I'm getting from this is like energy, right? The hidden sun is electricity, is our ability to expand our consciousness in our physical body, which brings me in to my resonance architecture stuff, is this hidden sun, the hidden physics, the ability to tap into free energy, right? And so I'm working on these, I'm a dumb boy, came up from poor poverty, not educated. I've had to teach myself absolutely everything that I've wanted to know, esoterica and anything.
That's the way to go, man.
It's, I'm working for it, man. And I better get a goddamn gold medal at the end of this, because I'll tell you what, like where I come from, like it's just, my family's crazy and very, very poor. So like, it's just, I want to make them proud, but I believe that there is this energy out there that we are being suppressed from. And this ties me into another question that I want to
finish your other question first.
Okay, yeah. Okay, absolutely. Okay, so
Jesus.
There's these old and Jesus, yes, thank you. So Jesus to me is energy. Jesus to me is the hidden sun. Is that so when they put him on the cross, they basically told us that this time and age of free energy, these buildings that put crosses at the top of the spires that are basically magnetic coils that tie down to these buildings to power these buildings, to have these spiritual experiences in old cathedrals, in old castles, in in these old resonant architecture. It's all resonance, right?
Are you familiar with egregores, by the way?
Egregores are basically like social concepts that come into physical reality once we all
believe it.
Yeah, believe it. Yeah.
So one thing that I was told by a Freemason is that to talk about like the geometry of ancient architecture, that they were designed with such a precision that the math, the angles and such inside these cathedrals was precise to harness the energy of egregores and also certain sacred frequencies. Because definitely Masons were involved with a lot of our ancient architecture.
Undoubtedly, and I think that's what the top tier is, man. I think the top tier is that breaking the egg to get the yolk inside, and the yolk inside is the true, like, Pythagorean truth.
Gnosis.
The gnosis,
the hidden
real
knowledge that we are eternal consciousness.
Exactly.
And if you want to talk about like the hidden sun, you talk to a Freemason. Well, they probably wouldn't tell you if you talk to them, but if you study their texts, you'll see that they believe that the hidden sun is the star Sirius.
Oh, that's the whole can of worms. That is a whole beautiful can of worms. Let's talk about the dark entities really quick, because I want to tie into that, because when I was telling you guys that story of the guy who built that hotel that basically founded all of Florida, which is looking like one of these very first states, one of the very first pieces of the occult esoteric building of this country, what we have known today. Oh God, I fucking blanked his name. Let me just get it really.
Flag something.
Henry Flagler. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Flagler, right? So he built this huge, beautiful, this hotel in St. Augustine, which is the oldest city in America, right? And he then thus built like 3 other huge basilica churches there too, and then founded Miami. He founded multiple other big fucking cities in Florida. And
Maya,
exactly. Maya is the mother of Hermes. That's Hermes' mother. And that's also Mary, and Mary is Jesus's mother, right? Yeah. So there you fucking go. And but what you said about egregores coming alive in these resonant architecture, which, thank you, by the way, you added to the fucking proverbial lasagna, my man, the layer, dude. Thank you. That fucking thick mozz. By the way, I saw this pizza place today. They had one slice of pizza had an entire ball of mozz on it. I was like, what are you guys doing, bro? That's crazy. Anyway,
that's crazy.
It's crazy. Want a whole ball of mozzarella on your fucking caprese, bros? Come on. And so the story is that when Flagler, whatever, died, he wanted to go in his rotunda in his hotel, and he wanted to be put there in his casket, and he wanted all the doors to be open to have complete flow through there in his resonant hotel. And then someone closed the door, lights went out, casket flipped over, he gets fucking trapped in that tile on the floor. You just fucking said that egregores come alive in these resonant architectures, and he gets trapped there. Now everybody has fucking hauntings in that building. We are eternal consciousness that is connected to the eternal light that wants to have physical experiences here on Earth. But what is the occult, and what is like these dark entities, and why they're hauntings, and why
the silver thread? The silver's connected to the moon.
Yeah, y'all really do go deep into some occult shit, don't you?
the silver thread.
So my take on that, man, is like when you get into the occult, and I guess your audience is probably like totally primed for this. I try to always prime my audience to understand that, like, occult is not an evil, scary word like we're told it is. Occult is just a thing, just like fire is a thing. Fire's not evil. Fire don't have fucking feelings and stuff. You light a fire and it'll burn your house down, but you shouldn't have been lighting it under your house. You know what I mean? You can also, it's the intentions. You can take that fire and you can build civilizations with it and technologies, and it can be a very good, wholesome tool. And that's the same as the occult. It's just a primordial knowledge that that has always existed. And there are people in this world who like to follow what is known as the left-hand path, which is using this occult knowledge for personal gain. And my understanding of that is like it has a karmic rebound on you. When you what's the word? When you petition cosmic forces to work for you in a way that is selfish and in a way that needs like immediate reward, and you're trying to do things for yourself, it's going to come back on you, you know? And that's how I understand negative entities, negative experiences. You know, there's just people that have done some really bad shit in life. And when they pass on, maybe they weren't able to go to that eternal world, and they got to stay around in this place. Like, I honestly don't know how a negative entity is formed. I know they're real. But you know, when you think about it, man, like you read about ceremonial magic and all these people who would call themselves magicians and stuff. And you notice when they're trying to conjure an entity, or they're trying to do some sort of ritual invocation. Yeah. Or like a homunculi, or they're like trying to do some invocation at an altar. Kind of crazy when you connect the dots that they're always using geometric symbols. Like if you read some of their occult texts, I can't remember the name off the top of my head because I've read so many different things, but like there's this one text where the guy says, if you want to summon a spirit, you have to draw a triangle and a circle, and you have to make sure the circle is a perfect circle, and if the circle breaks, then, you know, the spirit will be free. And like these people really believe this stuff. And then you get into the sacred geometry, you know, how reality is formed through these archetypal geometric shapes, like on the atomic and the molecular level. And now we're talking about Henry Flagella or whatever building a rotunda based on certain geometrical certain geometrical shapes so that his spirit can flow freely. So like there's a huge connection there to the ancient systems.
Oh, he was holding seances in his upper room, just to go in a little deeper, because I was like, okay, now I'm finding out more about this guy. And so he was holding ritualistic seances in his hotel, and he had this room upstairs. And it's crazy that they're letting kids fucking take college classes in this hotel, to be honest with you, that they turned it into a university, you know, dedicated to this man. And it's like, wow, this guy is a cult, because he had this room of mirrors upstairs. And when his wife was coming and his mistress was over there, he hid her in the room of mirrors. She hung herself in that room. Ooh. And kids told me to fucking day on my hand recorder that they have seen a hung woman ghost in that hall.
Damn.
And I told you about this.
Yeah. Before we recorded, you told us about that. Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying, man. Like, and she pulled the fucking devil card out of that Rider-Waite deck after that, you know? It's like this. I mean, that's kind of crazy that happened today, and we're having this conversation tonight, in my opinion. For sure. There's some crazy divine timing on all that. And I've never fucking been to Florida, man. Florida's tripping me out, dude, honestly.
Florida's cool, man.
Blowing my mind.
It's got some occult stuff. Like, I mean, think about it. Disney World's there. It's occult as shit.
You know, my family owns a fan boat company down here, and like they're in the adventure like scene in Florida, so they're able to get us free tickets to all these things, and we can get free tickets to Disney World, but now they're basically turning people away every day because you have to make reservations to go to Disneyland. So even people who come here every year, you know, and all this shit, they get turned away. But man, so I kind of want to go into this, you know, the Earth grid with you, like what your take is on ley lines and magnetic anomalies, and maybe where you live. And do you live on a magnetic anomaly? Are you on a mound? Are you on a ley line? Is there anything significant to the location of these sightings in your family's experience?
Honestly, like, I don't know. I get asked that all the time. And it's like, how could I know if our property was on a ley line, you know? I will say, when I first was particularly interested in the mystery traditions, and through some of our mutual CIA friends, like of me and my dad, we got connected with this guy out of Asheville, North Carolina, who is a Rosicrucian. He teaches courses online and things like that, and he's really heavy into crystals, and that's actually why I got into crystals in the first place, and now it's like a huge meme on my podcast. I particularly meme the ever-living shit out of crystals because I believe when you make fun of something, it destigmatizes it, and it's working. You know, I get messages all the time, just bought my first crystal, dude. Anyway,
nice.
Tangent aside, met the Rosicrucian guy, and one of the things he was explaining to us, he studied in Egypt for 17 years. Very intelligent guy. He had a PhD in, oh man, I can't remember if it was, I don't think it was anthropology. I think it was like comparative religions or something like that. I don't know.
Comparative mythology.
It could have been. I honestly don't know, but it was something of that nature, like something sociological where he's like studying cultures. And he personally lived in Egypt and studied under, oh man, I can't remember the guy's name either. I've never met him, but it's Ibrahim something. And it was this master sage type dude who like understood the vibrations with pendulums, and he could like measure your vibrations and shit like that. And
wow.
And you know, after coming back and starting his own school in Asheville, one of the things he was explaining to us is that through taking his Egyptian biogeometry and his training with pendulums and being able to measure vibrational energy, he's found that you can actually transmute. Oh, nice. Are they a specific frequency, a tuning fork?
These are, I just got these when I got here to Florida. My mom got these for Christmas, and I've just been kind of using them the last couple days. I mean, the other night when I was when I was just doing it just like while my mic was muted. I didn't even mean to side tangent, but I'm just gonna say it since you asked. But the other night I was using the closest one I could find for sleep, which is this F963 for sleep.
Nice.
And I had some crazy dreams, which actually you reminded me of my dream earlier. This was a post-apocalyptic dream where I was at first a man, and then later I morphed into a woman. And I was in a high school / shopping mall, and John Goodman was this mob character that was basically knew the end of the world was coming, and I was a part of his Goonies, but I needed to escape. Right? I needed to escape. I literally showed my family that the next day because I was like, you guys haven't seen The Righteous Gemstones? It's awesome. I love that show. But yeah, exactly. And like John Goodman's such a good nemesis. I don't know why. Yeah. It's always some fucking fat guy in my dreams every time. But anyways, when you talked earlier about these entities crawling on all fours, later when I finally was able to escape the clutches and before I couldn't save anybody from the end of the world, by the way. Like I tried, but it didn't work. Like I would try to tell people, but it just was slowing me down from getting away myself. So I just had to go. And when I left, I was running on all fours. Like I was running on all fours because I thought it was going to be faster. And so I go down the road away. I'm running away, but I turn around. I go around the street and I go around and I get looped right back into it. And so I thought it was interesting when you said earlier they walk around on all fours, run on all fours, even though thus they run on all fours. And I was trying to run away on all fours, but they're bipedal.
Yeah, they have like hands. They would just get down, and it's how he described it. I mean, I've seen one of these entities myself. It's just a little tiny 3 or 4 foot tall dude who has 2 feet, 2 hands, a head, and just imagine you get down and you start running on your hands. That's what they did. Oh, was that 963 hertz, by the way? That's yes, a very good sacred frequency. That's actually a solfeggio frequency. That's the 9th solfeggio frequency.
Okay, so that's it. Yeah, I have fa, law right here, 852.
Perfect.
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the Pythagorean set, if I'm not mistaken.
Good shit, man. I did a whole episode on this. Yeah, scale. It's really. It's episode 10. I think it's called Good Vibrations. But nice. I'm super into solfeggio frequencies. For literally the last year, I sleep every single night with the solfeggio frequencies playing, and I'll never go back.
What's been happening with your dreams, baby?
Honestly, man, like I don't know. Like I've always had weird dreams, and you know, like yesterday I got an Oculus Rift or Oculus Quest 2 days ago, played some VR, played a horror game yesterday. A dude with a machete chased me and killed me. Next thing you know, I dreamed all night about Michael Myers chasing me. So true story. But yeah, no, I have really weird dreams. What were we
talking about?
Before the frequencies, it was damn, I don't.
Well, we were talking about frequency, and that's kind of why I picked him up and pulled him out. Because we were going down that rabbit hole. I mean, I have another question in my notes.
Sure, shoot.
So you're into word magic, my man,
Mm-hmm.
and I was wondering, what was like your first connection between the first time you experienced this thing that we call word magic, and maybe what's something that's like a common use of word magic in your life currently?
Okay, so my first experience of word magic was through study. I began to read and understand that language was actually constructed, in very ancient times by people who were incredibly intelligent. And when you get into the differences behind languages and really break it down, like what the fuck is language, right? I started to think about this and I realized like we are a spirit. We are a conscious, eternal entity who has manifested for a limited time in this little biological flesh suit with these vocal cords that have evolved enough to flap in a certain way to manipulate the breath coming from our lungs to rearrange literal sound waves in front of us and shoot at somebody like this invisible beam of energy that is then interpreted by their ears, and they understand the mumbo jumbo gibberish shit we're saying. And in their mind, subconsciously, they see those symbols that they've been learning their whole life, how to write and spell and read on paper. And they implicitly understand that flapping of your mouth and that sound that you made just correlated to an extremely elaborate system of geometric shapes. And when you think about it like that, you begin to understand words are inherently magical. You're using the power of your consciousness to communicate your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions to other people through literal sonic vibrations. And if that's not magic, fuck out of here, dude. So like I began to really dive into like Babylonian word magic and then into ancient Egyptian systems. And you begin to realize their entire system of magic was it was based on words. It was called Heka. It was all about using words. So what I have come to understand is I've always had a gift for speaking, so to speak. Like I feel like I have a natural affinity to arrange my vocabulary in a way to get the exact reaction out of my audience. And I use that to my advantage on my show. And I don't use it in a way that I feel is like malicious or deceptive. I use it in a way where when I'm trying to explain something that I feel strongly about, there's probably not going to be any confusion about it. You know what I mean?
I wish I battle with that. I battle with issues, especially when it comes to something that's so deeply passionate that I can't find a way, because I want to articulate it so well. But and then you get just I trip up sometimes on that, especially when I'm talking about this piece that I want to be my fucking magnum opus, man, the resonant architecture, and it's like, how do you even explain it? And so that's a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful gift, man.
I mean, I would say you guys clearly have gifts too. Like everybody has different gifts, and I just feel like, I've always challenged myself. Like my friends know me as this privately. I've always tried to come up with like the wackiest words to just shock people and throw them off. And like, I've always practiced like, man, like at one point I had I've got the gift of the gab. Like I'm actually in sales. I've been in sales for the last 3 years and I'm very good at it. And, man, I kid you not, like my mom is still to this day, very Christian, very, very like PG, like don't say bad language at me. Or around me or at all. She doesn't want to say bad language at all. And I swear to you, bro, one time I had my mom laughing just at me saying the F word because I presented it in a way that I knew she could handle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's asking for a lot from my mom. But anyway, to me that's word magic. To answer your question, it's not to like talk me up or anything. It's just what I feel word magic is arranging your vocabulary or your language in a way that has a targeted effect on the listener, which, in psychological terms, that's called neurolinguistic programming. Or, if you want to go into affirmations, you're arranging your vocabulary in a way that has a targeted effect on your own subconscious mind to rewrite your own subconscious programming. Because that's what magic really is. If you boil it down, it's just changing your subconscious thoughts and beliefs so that you can do things you normally couldn't, like start a podcast. I'm really scared. What do I do? The CIA said they can kill us. Fuck it. I'm not scared anymore. And I did it. Magic.
Yes. Excellent, man. You got anything else, Roman?
Yeah, I mean, always. I mean, I feel like we could just literally keep going for another few hours, but
we could.
We have reached that 2-hour mark, which is usually our thing. But I guess let me just ask you a little bit more about Hecka. Which is funny because where I come from on the West Coast, we grew up saying Hecka, and I'm wondering like,
like hella?
Yeah, like hella, but we said Hecka because it was funny because it's like, we
Hecka's
can't get in trouble. We can't get in trouble for saying Hecka, because at school and shit. So, yeah, what's up with that? Like, do you think that was programmed on purpose? Like, what the heck?
I don't know. I never thought about that. I don't know. That's a very interesting question. But like, honestly, dude, I don't, are you guys into Jordan Maxwell at all?
A little bit. He's a great philosopher in my opinion.
Yeah. He just passed away, unfortunately. But dude, if you watch Jordan Maxwell videos, that'll just rip your mind wide open. Cause he plays with words like a fucking surgeon, dude. He just cuts them apart and he shows you like how words have hidden meanings that you would never consciously detect. And that very well could be that could be like what you just suggested. Like, for example, this is a really deep one. The word aura, like your energy, your aura, it's been suggested. I don't know if this is true. I'm not dying on this hill. It's just fun to contemplate, but it's been suggested that the word aura might mean something to the effect of your golden light. And it's like, well, how would you get that meaning? Well, look at the first part of the word, AU, which is the atomic element for gold. And then the second part of the word Ra or Re, the Egyptian deity of light, the sun. And, when you break down those Sumerian tablets and they're talking about what you were saying earlier, it was like they were using the slaves to mine gold, right? Mm-hmm. It's also been suggested that the etymology there in the phrasing of that tablet, the mine or they were used, I can't remember the exact context, but essentially they were trying to equate that the mining gold might actually be your mind and the gold is your aura or something to that effect. I fucked that one up pretty bad, but
I'm thinking of like
the aurora borealis, right? So that's all lights in the sky in the North Pole. There's a connection there, obviously.
Yeah, but that's just the first example off the top of my head. But like, word magic is cool shit, man.
It is, and aurora borealis, aura, auric field, Ouroboros. Ouroboros is like this cyclical time eating itself. Our aura is a toroid of magnetic energy. Then aurora borealis is magnetic anomaly of the planet, and the planet's aura. And so
that's some fascinating shit right there, man. I didn't think about that. Yeah, it is a torus field, isn't it? The magnetic field.
Yeah. I mean, I just had that thought while you guys were talking. This is how this works, man. This is called a weave, man. Like, we're just weaving it all together, bro. And like, this type of communication is in fact what keeps it going, baby. Like, I love this. This has been beautiful and great.
Yeah, let's put a cap on it right there because I'm sure it's late over there on the east side. Go ahead and Ryan, tell people where they can find you, what you got going on, and where they can learn more.
Sure. So I appreciate that. I have a podcast called Bledsoe Said So. My name is Ryan Bledsoe. If you don't remember by now, I'm sure they're looking at their phone, reading the episode title anyway. So anyway, so that's Bledsoe Said So. It's on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all of them. It's your typical, all over the internet. Just Google or search Bledsoe Said So. We did just launch a Patreon. I would suggest you listen to the show first before you go looking into the Patreon. We're relatively new. We're less than a year. We just hit like our 40th something episode, but I just want to let the listener know that when they dive into the show, it is a meta documentary project. So it's very linear. I would highly recommend that people start from episode 0. Which is the kind of like get to know us episode. If they want to get right to the meat and the potatoes and they want to hear all the esoteric shit and they like the conversation we've had, start with episode 1. But otherwise, hope people enjoy it. Start from the beginning, and next thing you know, you'll be at episode 40 and you'll be like, damn, I want more. That's what we get a lot. So hopefully they like it out there.
Excellent, man.
Yeah,
Thank
they
you so
will.
much.
Y'all better go check that out.
Well, thank you for joining us, Ryan. We appreciate you and your time. Fire Tribe, go check them out and wake up. Yo, what's up, Fire Tribe?
What's up, you sneaky snakes?
Welcome to the outro.
Outro.
Yeah, man. What'd you think of Ryan Bledsoe, Roman?
I bled some on that one, dude.
I know, dude. You're all over the place, man.
Someone picked my noodle up. Well, it's like, where do we go? It's like we talk paranormal, and it's just like, okay, we got this kid for a couple hours. This guy, this man, this awesome dude. For a couple hours, like, let's crank the juice. Let's turn on the juicer and start throwing in the veggies, man. Because like I'm trying to drink that fucking cosmic juice. So yeah, I'm sorry I was all over the place. I passed out on the drive over here from St. Augustine in the car because, dude, I've just been sleeping like I've been having so many dreams that I haven't been sleeping that well. And like my head is facing south in this room. It's also a tiny child's bed. Everyone, we got my mom and her husband on the big bed. You got my brother and my new brother, my sister and her husband on the other bed. Then you got the other sister on the big bed, and me and my brother are on these tiny fucking beds. Anyways, point I'm getting as I drank a bunch of coffee beforehand, which is always the case. So I'm fucking incredibly caffeinated, but dude, it was great, man. It was great. I think it was a good. It's just going to be a good break from the America stuff because we need to let out our esoteric shit every once in a while,
Yeah, man. Yeah, I find it fascinating. Like with aliens, I'm kind of half in and half out, and it's like what you talked about, because the government's coming out with alien stuff is kind of like run away. But when you hear stories like this, and also those one with Raven that we did,
yeah,
they're so fucking fascinating and deep, and these people sound honest as fuck, and it's hard to like be like, well, aliens are fucking dumb and not real, because you can see it, like they're speaking from true experiences, and it's just like a part of this world that I haven't ever got a chance to tap into, so I'm lacking the understanding. But
yeah,
when you hear these types of things, it's like it's so beyond like the physical realm. It's really can be hard to accept or entertain or believe, because it's just so fucking crazy. But the consistency in the different stories is what trips me out. And I do the same thing kind of with these stories that I do with like the religions, and I find the similarities between them and try to pull out what I can from those ideas.
You have to, man. It's your detective, and it's your inner detective, it's your inner Holmes, your inner Sherlock, dude. It's like, you and you can't just listen to one story. It's why it's good that we did have Craven on too, because there were similarities in their stories of entities. We didn't bring it up. I was going to a couple times to talk about Craven, but I didn't. But I agree, man. even still, we just had that great conversation, and I'm like, okay, well, I still need to do more digging. You know, I need to do more digging. I think some of it is, you know, there needs to be the right place and the time. And I think you're chosen. I think you're chosen when you get a C. I think they're very specific to when and how you get to see, and you got to do work. It's not, you know, like, he didn't mention it, but his father got healed of Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's been there's a woman who got basically healed of cancer through one of these entities, like Chris or Ryan's father, basically, like, and from my interpretation, I might butcher this. Sorry, Ryan, if I had, you know, text me if not, like, to say, hey, you fucking asshole, you got that all wrong. But he had some people out, and this lady was out there, and she came there with cancer, and then she left without it. So, you know, angelic beings, interdimensional beings, and I believe more about interdimensional entities than I do outer planetary aliens from, you know, millions of light years away. So on that sense, I definitely vibe with that kind of, you know, thought piece more than the other one, you know. And I think we're getting there, man. I think we're gonna do, you know, we keep busting these episodes out over the next few years and start digging deep, man. And we're gonna really have some epiphanizal moments, and I'm really stoked. You sneaky some. I'm just gonna say this because it just popped in my head. You sneaky some, but you sneaky some B. And I brought this up to somebody the other day because you blew my noggin. You blew my noodle on the ground, and I had to pick it back up. But the Philosopher's Stone and King Arthur and the story of the sword and the stone. The sword and the stone is the Philosopher's Stone. It's like the sword can only ever get in there through an alchemical philosophical sense. And the journey, the hero's journey to basically get that sword out of the stone is the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. When you told me that, I was fucking mind blown, and I had to say it here on the show, man.
Yeah, I mean, I got it from somewhere else. It's not my idea or anything. It's another podcast I listened to.
It just made so much sense. Makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. He talks. Ryan talked about the Philosopher's Stone on his podcast also, and in kind of a different way, you know, but in also the same way. It's the alchemical marriage idea of creating the. You're not really creating gold. You're creating like your golden consciousness. You're creating something more than gold.
Yeah,
it's a spiritual consciousness that's from the golden age. Maybe that's the idea of it, I guess, is
I like
that perfect resonance from that golden age period. I'm not, you know, I don't know, I'm speculating, but
no, for sure. I mean, well, like we said, there's those minute those minute words that are laced into our, you know, our embedded understanding that are they seem minimal. They seem like, wow, how could the golden era, you know, when we talk about philosophical gold, right? Why the fuck not? Right? The fuck not? Copper age, you know, these different iron age, these different ages. Oh, let me tell you something fascinating about the star fort I visited today.
Oh, the silver age comes after the gold age, right?
Yeah. And that's
so
at this.
And the silver is connected to the moon
exactly.
and Satan and all that other stuff. So
and that falls right along with the chronology of everything.
The fall
bro.
from the golden age, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I dig it. Let me tell you something crazy about the star forts I saw today. It was my first star fort I've ever visited.
What's it, a desalinization plant?
I have the recording, and you guys will be able to check it out on Patreon. I haven't edited yet. I'm going to edit this whole Florida trip, and it's going to be fucking a doozy. But basically, I was at the Star Fort today, and I wasn't going to get into that, what you just asked, but I will now. Basically, the Rangers, right? It's a national park emblem. You got to pay to get in, and they told the story, you know, the mainstream narrative story, obviously. And all it was it was all about battle. It was all about battle. and I had to keep myself contained. And I was like, I'm just going to listen to these stories. I'm going to listen to these park rangers talk to these 30 people that are here listening about pirates and conquistadors, which is probably true, whatever. Anyway, man, I asked him, I was like, hey, there's a lot of stuff online talking about at the end, at the end of the talk, he asked if there's any questions. Like, yeah, so there's some like alternative viewpoints from star forts or bastion forts online. And I was actually curious if you can help me like talk through some of these alternative viewpoints that's online about star forts. And he's like, yeah, yeah. I was like, so I see we're next to the ocean here and we have a moat, and I see you guys have a well over here. Do you think these ever served as like some sort of desalination plant? And he's like, that's interesting. He's like, but the water table here is so high that there's so much fresh water from the ground, so on and so forth, right? And I was like, well, what about like sacred alchemical geometrical shapes and understanding resonance? Do you think this could have ever been used for any sort of resonance? And he was just like, well, blah, blah, blah. I kind of had a mainstream way to push that off. Anyways, you guys will hear all this soon enough. But what I think is interesting, bro, is they had these two very specific types of cannons, right? Like there was cannons everywhere, all over everywhere. And they were emphasizing the cannonballs, right? And one of these kind of threads that gets brought up with the star forts and Tartaria stuff and ether, energy, resonance, and all that shit is that the cannons were never used for cannonballs. That they were later, after they were refound. They're like, what the fuck are these? They had these iron ones that are like lumpy black iron cannons, right? They're fucking, they look like someone took a fucking turd and the turd had been sitting in there like they had a burnt asshole. There's just a black lumpy cannon. And then they had these other ones that were detailed, smooth copper cannons, pure copper, tarnished copper. And they had these things called dolphins, man, that are handles on it, right? And the other cannons didn't really have handles like that.
Dolphins, Atlantis.
Exactly. And no, I'm telling you, I took pictures. I'll send it to you. They call them dolphins, and they're shaped like fish. And and what else do dolphins do? They make that noise, right?
Oh, yeah, echo.
Yeah, they echo, right? And so it's like,
yeah, they're talking like so.
What else is copper? The motherfucking Statue of Liberty, right? It's also on a star fort. And so it's like, there you go with the resonance and the sound and the copper. And so it's like, if they were used for battle, they were used for resonant battle.
I keep hearing people talk about the Statue of Liberty and how it has 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land.
Oof.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to
stuff.
Yeah, I keep on going back to David Matheson and Ophiuchus, how he has 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land.
Interesting.
And so I'm wondering if there's maybe a connection more so to Ophiuchus rather than these other deities that they talk about. Or maybe Mithra is related to Ophiuchus.
Oh, that maybe it's maybe the female
and pirates, right? Like the Captain Morgan.
That
had
was
1 foot on the land and 1 foot on the barrel.
He totally brought that up today. That was one of the main pirates that was going after St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Dude, pirates. That's the other thing is like, that's a part of history that I really, really, really want to be true. I love pirates.
Pyramid.
Pyrotes.
Pyroti.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to dig in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so back to the entity stuff, what really kind of gets me, why I had to bring it up with Ryan is like, we talk about a lot about this, like, this lovey consciousness, this goodness, this all ever encompassing, energy that is all of consciousness. But then again, there's these like hauntings. There's these like strange kind of like almost like demonic forces. And it's like that, it's an anomaly, like if the universe is all this good consciousness, where and how and why do these entities form and why do we have these like kind of like ghostly haunting experiences?
Well, it seems like aliens are good and these, well, the entities in his stories, I'll say, not aliens, entities, are good consciousness, right? They're there for good reasons, whereas the haunting ones are usually something bad happened to the person in that area, and that negative energy has been trapped there, and so that's why you get the negative types of ideas, because you get hung or you get shot or you're murdered or something like that, and that creates the negative energy in that field. So you get these ghost stories and whatnot. That's why there are a lot of them around graveyards and stuff like that, and different things, like bad things that happened, or big old battles, like Roanoke in Virginia, right?
Yeah,
there was a big battle there, and all these people died, and it has hauntings. So
I think karma ties into that.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say to him when he was like, how do I tell if there's, ley lines here? So if you go back and listen to this, Ryan, and you're hearing this now, pick up some dowsing rods and go use the dowsing rods on your land and see if you can find any anomalies from that.
Anomalistic. That's a fun word, right? That one right there.
Because Rick was telling us about how he uses the tricky sticks.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a way to figure it out. But you can also use that to find waterways and other things too. But that could be a form of current that's bringing electricity into the area too.
That's why I had to ask that, man. Is like,
and these different frequencies can have how do you say these different frequencies can take on different forms, right? Mm-hmm. So you might be seeing these frequencies and putting a form to it to explain what it is that you're seeing. Not to discount anything that he said at all, but I'm just trying to put it into more of a applicable idea,
Oh, for sure. No, I'm not discrediting anybody, man. Like, we're just talking, no way, for sure. I love Ryan. I think that guy's super cool, and his dad knows Tom DeLonge, so so I'm crying. Dude, you don't understand, man.
Who cares about Tom DeLonge?
I don't care about Tom DeLonge. I'm just saying, I saw Blink-182. It was the first concert I ever saw. It's a special moment for me. Okay. Special moment. And then I went and saw Blink-182 later without Tom DeLonge, and they sucked. So it was like they got the fucking singer from Alkaline Trio or whatever to come in, and
I don't know that much about them.
I mean, yeah, I know we're a couple years apart. You're an old man. I know.
They were teeny bopper stuff by my time.
Oh, for sure. I know. Well, especially since you're a metalhead, like you're not gonna fucking listen to Blink. But the thing is I
think Andy mentioned that he listens to he liked Blink-182.
They're fun, man. They're fun. And they're really fast when you see them live. Like they're probably like double the speed than when you like listen to them, their recorded shit. Like you go to their concert and you'd be like, damn it, like what? They're fucking like I think really fast.
Travis Barker's a really great drummer though.
Yeah, dude. And Mark Hoppus is a great fucking bass player. And Tom DeLonge is a great singer. Notice how I didn't say guitar player there. I mean, he's all right. But now I'm going to go look at this Angels and Airwaves shit, because it's like there's some coding there, like we talked about earlier. Angels and Airwaves.
Yeah. In the electromagnetic sphere.
Exactly, dude. Hey, oh shit, something else too. Fuck, I didn't bring this up. There were so many like little epiphanies I was having I wanted to talk about. But we're talking about, entities holding this these geometrical shapes to kind of like wield energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the trinity of things in my antiquated transhumanism thought piece series, whatever the fuck I want to call it, is the crown, the scepter, and the globus cruciger. And the globus cruciger is a globe. It's generally an orb And those are the same exact fucking things you see on the tops of buildings. It's a orb with a cross on top of it, right?
Yeah.
They're seeing orbs when they see entities. And it's also the thing, I think we talked about trapping entities during the show a little bit. And I'm thinking, okay. So what the fuck is a Globus Cruciger really? Like, does it trap entities? Does it hold like liquid mercury? Does it hold like, it's an alchemical something. It's an alchemical something, but every single real, like antiquated piece of art that I find, they are holding the Globus Cruciger and they have a crown and they have a scepter of sorts.
What I've heard is that it's to show kingship over the world.
Well, yeah, that's in my opinion, that's the exoteric kind of explanation of it, because it's just like, that's the same reason why they have a crown and the scepter. It's because they're in power and it's a symbol of power. But what is power? It's energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's an energetic symbol, dude. Like,
Well, Howdy Mikowski was telling us about how when you're bringing up resonance architecture to him, is they were using it inside of these resonance architecture, right? So they could have the grounding rod. That's basically what it is. It's a grounding rod to ground themselves so they could take in all that electricity. So if electricity is spirit, then they're taking in all that spirit energy.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. That's it, man. Because you have this globe, the Globus Cruciger, and on top of it you have a cross. And if the cross is this, I mean, the cross is also one piece of a net, right? It's one piece of a net. If you were to take crosses and connect, a million crosses, you have a lattice, you have a net, you have a grid, the cross is one piece of a grid, right? And it's a net. It's a net, catches energy. It catches electricity. It catches ether energy. And so the foot of it grounds into the globe. It's almost like it catches the energy and it goes into the Globus Cruciger itself.
I'd say on like the saga side, it would be a symbol of how Atlantis is at the top of the globe, and how that is the controlling power, and they are handing down kingship to these other people, just like we hear in the mythologies of these deities handing down kingship to the main people. They're handing in the power was coming from Atlantis.
Maybe the North Pole is a Northern Cross, and there's a actually, the symbol of the cross inside the circle is the Atlantean symbol. And so maybe if you stood that cross up and down, it would be a Globus Cruciger, and maybe that's what the Earth is a Globus Cruciger with a cross standing up top and on the top of the Earth, catching etherical energy from the sun or something, and then stemming it down everywhere else. Like, so the North, we know, is potent, right? It's obviously potent and magnetic energy. So, I don't know. These are obviously, we're speculating here, people. Obviously, I'm pretty sure you can fucking guess that we're speculating. But, we're obviously allowed to. It's our show. So, anyways.
Yeah, but research yourself. Don't take our word for it.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously research, and then also join the Telegram, join the family over there. Join
the Patreon.
Join the fucking Patreon, y'all. If you guys want to hear more of this Florida trip, I'm gonna edit that up on there. I got 2 episodes. I'm just behind right now on editing stuff for the Patreon because I'm on vacation. But whilst on vacation, I'm also researching and still potting. So, and I'm getting better at it, man. I'm getting better. I think the Rick Osmond one had the best sounding music so far, level wise. Like, I think the mix was good. I'm getting better at mixing. And so, I'm taking more time doing it. So it just gets better, and we're refining the art. We're doing this for you guys. We're doing it for everybody. We're doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for the world. We're doing it for the Globus Cruciger, y'all. Trying to get me one of them.
Yeah, my thing is, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind about anything. I just want to present information
Yeah.
and try to learn on my own. And hopefully, you guys can all learn with us and help us figure stuff out as we help you figure stuff out. And maybe there's nuggets of something that rings true to you, and that's something that you're gonna take a rabbit hole down and go find out more about yourself. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything.
Well, the widow's son. So Hiram Abiff is also known as the widow's son. That's super fascinating.
Yeah.
So like that kind of sounds like a Jesus-y character, huh?
In a way.
In a way, like in a way. Not saying it is. I'm saying it's like kind of gives me that kind of vibe of like, okay, this widow, like this this fatherless character. Anyways, man, we gotta go, dude. We're just going way too deep. Y'all have a lot to take away from this episode, and we'll see you guys on the other side.
All right, wake up.
Wake up.